Chapter 534. You're courting death. Fong Xingjian glared, and his sword intent gushed out, piercing toward the fifth prince's head. However, he felt a gush of black aura gushing toward him. It was a will that wanted to take over everything, possess everything, destroy everything, and shatter everything. This was the fifth prince's martial will. The craftiness, brutality, and viciousness within it did not seem like that of a human's. However, Fong Xingjian's condensed sword intent had after all reached the stage where he could see through life and death. It was already at the pinnacle below the divine level. With this clash of wills, the fifth prince's martial will shattered and retreated back into his head. Fong Xingjian was just about to follow up with another attack when he realized that a transparent will had already encompassed the fifth prince's entire body. It was the will of the divine level ferocious beast's infant, the four-eyed heavenly winged beast. This four-eyed heavenly winged beast had used its will to protect the fifth prince, helping him fend off Fong Xingjian's martial will. Fong Xingjian let out a cold snort. Although his sword intent was strong, it was impossible for him to break through the four-eyed heavenly winged beast's will so easily. Therefore, he made his move. The ground under his feet exploded, and as he stomped down fiercely, it was as if a magnitude 7 or 8 earthquake had occurred in the Wang clan. Countless buildings collapsed, and the ground shattered. With this explosion, everyone from the Wang clan and the surroundings retreated while crying out in astonishment. Although the Dark Knight did not move, he had no choice but to perform his reduced force field, shaking off the flying debris. Fong Xingjian also appeared before the fifth prince, as if he had teleported with the force of this stomp. His huge palm descended from the sky, as if the world had collapsed. It smashed down fiercely with a power that could destroy cities and strongholds. Faced with the explosive pressure from Fong Xingjian's world-shaking palm, the fifth prince let out a furious bellow, drawing circles with one hand and circles with the other. He seemed to have turned into a spinning ball, retreating along with Fong Xingjian's palm force. What fist technique is this? Fong Xingjian took a step forward, causing the ground to crack. However, he did not let his guard down at all. He gave chase once more and punched out once more. Rumbling sounds that sounded like meteors descending from the heavens rang out incessantly. Faced with Fong Xingjian's unrelenting punch, the fifth prince's hands were as gentle as flowing water. Many circles of various sizes continued to move out. Not only did they reduce Fong Xingjian's power, but they also deflected his fist and tugged at Fong Xingjian's body, causing Fong Xingjian to be unguarded. Taking advantage of the moment when Fong Xingjian was being led astray by his own power, the fifth prince's movements changed from gentle to explosive within a short period of time. His right fist seemed to have turned into a huge hammer in that instant. As the muscles throughout his body trembled and strong gales blew, the fifth prince punched out, breaking through layers of air and smashing onto Fong Xingjian's chest with a clang. Fong Xingjian only felt a terrifying tremor gushing down from his chest, as if wanting to tremble through his entire body and turn it into dust. In this series of exchanges, the fifth prince's fist technique was a combination of toughness and gentleness, displaying an unprecedented level of martial arts. What was even more terrifying was that his physical attributes, which were at 4 tiers of perfection, were 1 tier higher than Fong Xingjian's. Although the fifth prince's martial will was not a match for Fong Xingjian's, he had the protection of the four-eyed heavenly winged beast. After taking 10 consecutive steps back, Fong Xingjian felt a faint smell of blood coming from his throat. His lungs had been injured from the tremors. However, Fong Xingjian did not pay it any heed. It was because he had not even unleashed 10% of his full prowess. He asked curiously, "Good fist technique. What's the name of this fist technique?" "This is a fist technique that I created myself. It's called Taiji Fist," the fifth prince said with a cold laugh. "I know that your body's toughness has reached perfection, and your sword arts cultivation is even more amazing. It's easy for me to defeat you, but it's a little difficult for me to kill you. However, so what? Xiao He." That four-eyed heavenly winged beast had unknowingly appeared behind the fifth prince. As the fifth prince called out, the four-eyed heavenly winged beast pushed the fifth prince onto his body. The fifth prince sat on the four-eyed heavenly winged beast, and waves of physical strength continued to turn into the power of martial will, augmenting the fifth prince's body. At this moment, the fifth prince's entire body was flashing with fluorescent light. It was as if he had put on an armor that had greatly increased his defensive prowess. He had completely integrated the four-eyed heavenly winged beast's power. This meant that the fifth prince's power had merged perfectly with his mount, and each of his punches and kicks would be augmented by divine-level will. As he merged with his mount, the fifth prince put out his hand and bellowed, "Spear, come!" In that instant, a stream of white light cut across the sky, accompanied by lightning, and flew into the fifth prince's hand. Looking at the long spear in the fifth prince's hand, which continued to emit waves of electricity, the Dark Knight's judgment was extremely vicious. As expected of the number one person under the first prince's command, he said in astonishment, "Thunder-permeating spear, Bryanak." This fifth prince has really hidden it well. The thunder-permeating spear, Bryanak, was the legendary weapon that the sun god Tigru, who was the first to unify the entire miracle world and create the Sun Dynasty. It was said that this was a divine weapon that the divine Sun Emperor had forged by condensing sunlight. It could turn into light to attack, and no matter how far away the enemy was, it could instantly reach them, unleashing the divine light of the sun, which was like lightning, to kill the opponent. That's right. I found this thunder-permeating spear, Bryanak, in a kitchen. It was treated by others as an ordinary fire stick, and it can be said to be a divine item that has been covered in dust. Now that it has been activated by me, it can only be used by me, to be able to die under this weapon that the divine Sun Emperor carried with him. Fang Xingjian, you should be proud of yourself. As the fifth prince spoke, he rode on his mount and tore through the atmosphere. He turned into a series of afterimages and flew up several thousand meters into the sky. Then the thunder-permeating spear in his hand turned into a long light path, thrusting out toward Fang Xingjian from several kilometers away. With a clang, Fang Xingjian felt a tremendous force coming toward him, and he was sent flying several tens of meters away. Then the fifth prince rode on the four-eyed heavenly winged beast, moving at a speed as fast as lightning. Streams of light spear swept out and pierced out, and each attack brought about a large area of lightning and flames. Fang Xingjian let out an explosive bellow and punched out repeatedly, turning into streams of astonishing sword cheese that tore through the sky and clashed against the light spear. However, all of them were shattered by the light spear. The fifth prince laughed out loud and said, "Fang Xingjian, have a good taste of the prowess of this thunder-permeating spear." At the next moment, the thunder-permeating spear burst out with a myriad of afterimages. Each spear seemed to have lashed out and caused the air within a range of 100 meters to explode. Accompanied by waves of lightning and flames, the entire Wong clan's hall was blasted into smithereens in the blink of an eye. Everyone in the Wong clan had no choice but to retreat time and time again. In the blink of an eye, all of them had retreated out of the Wong clan's manor. In the sky, the fifth prince's body brought about a series of afterimages as he pierced through the sky at a speed that was over 100 times that of supersonic speed. The light spear in his hand formed a continuous stretch, stirring up the wind and clouds, bringing about a series of tornadoes. Lightning and flames kept on raining down. The wind and clouds, lightning and flames were mixed together, forming a natural disaster that stretched out for several tens of leagues. They kept on crashing down, and a power that could destroy the entire Sunset Fortress came crashing down precisely toward where Fang Xingjian was. Each time the light spear, which had extended to a length of several kilometers, swept across the ground, it would lash out and cause explosions in the air, stirring up lightning and flames, and causing the ground to tremble crazily. It was as if the entire world was crying out. Everyone in the Wong clan, including the Dark Knight, had retreated several kilometers away. Everyone in the entire Sunset Fortress was crying and screaming as they continued to flee. With the reinforcement from the four-eyed, heavenly winged beast's will and the terrifying prowess of the thunder-permeating spear, the fifth prince was now like a divine punishment that controlled the heavens. He brought about a power that could destroy everything. Winds and clouds seethed, and mountains and rivers were shattered. Chapter 535. Right now, the fifth prince's aura was far too powerful. He had the four-eyed, heavenly winged beast under him, which had the augmentation of a divine-level will. Both his speed and strength far surpassed that of a demigod with 4 tiers of perfection. Coupled with the thunder-permeating spear in his hand, he was extremely ferocious. Even if a divine-level expert were to really come, he would be able to put up a fight. If his four-eyed heavenly winged beast were to grow a little more and truly become a divine-level expert, his battle prowess would probably be comparable to that of a divine-level expert. It's fortunate that I've come personally this time around. If someone else were to come, they'd really suffer a great loss under the fifth prince's hands. It's true that experts who walk the path of knights are a greater threat to me than mages and magic prince warriors. Just as Feng Xingjian was thinking this, the fifth prince let out an enraged bellow in the sky, and his aura surged. Even the four-eyed heavenly winged beast under him let out a loud divine beast roar. Its vital energy and blood swelled, and its augmentation of a divine level will emitted a piercing white light. Feng Xingjian, fist arts are spear arts. Today, I'll let you have a taste of this move that I've created after 3 months of hard work since the world's metamorphosis. Dark Knight, you better watch carefully as well. I prepared this move for eldest brother, but I'll let you have a taste of it first. Otherwise, eldest brother won't even know how he died. Hearing that, the Dark Knight's countenance turned grim. However, the power that the fifth prince had suddenly unleashed was far too astonishing. Even he had no choice but to remain silent. Seething martial will came gushing forth, wreaking havoc in a large part of the Sunset Fortress. Take this mortal world annihilation. In that instant, the entire sky lit up, and the light spear, Bryanak, instantly turned into a light pillar that was over 10 kilometers long and 3 to 4 kilometers wide. Lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled incessantly around the light pillar, bringing about a series of tornadoes and hurricanes. It was as if the gods in the sky had sent down their judgment of doomsday. The aura of the end of the world and the end of life descended from the sky. Before the light spear arrived, that gush of martial will that was filled with extreme despair had already swept through the entire Sunset Fortress, making everyone feel as if their lives no longer belonged to them. With a loud bang, the spear finally fell from the sky, smashing down. Under this spear, flames and electricity surged wildly, and the terrifying power seemed to be able to forcefully explode the entire space. Before the spear even arrived, the sweeping airflow had already flattened the entire Wang clan. In this earth-shattering attack, Feng Xingjian stood in the ruins like an ant. He did not intend to use his full strength. The bracelet on his body changed slightly, and in an instant, it covered his entire body. In the next moment, the violent energy in Tyron's body circulated throughout Feng Xingjian's entire body. Damn it, why are we fusing again? If we combine our powers, we'll be able to defeat him easily. As for the 5 god-slaying swords, we'll leave them for the first prince. I'm going to vomit. 1 minute. I can only merge for 1 minute at most. It's more than enough. In that instant, the auras of over 1,800 specialty seeds erupted, and 16 billion physical particles exploded simultaneously. Feng Xingjian's hair stood up straight, emitting piercing light radiation. One of them was a demigod with 2 tiers of perfection, while the other was a demigod with 3 tiers of perfection. Their powers were no small matter. What was even more terrifying was that the 2 of them had each unlocked 1.08 billion physical particles, and Tyrant had even engulfed the physical bodies of 2 divine-level experts. Now that the 2 of them had fused together, how terrifying would their powers be? Endless power seethed in Feng Xingjian's body and when his violent, vital energy and blood circulated, they seemed to be able to smash through steel plates. The ground in the surroundings continued to sink and crack under the pressure of the powers. Faced with the Bryonax light spear descending from the sky, Feng Xingjian did not dodge. Instead, his palm faced the direction of the light spear, and streams of light spots gathered together. The god-perishing palm was activated instantly, and a similar light pillar extended out from Feng Xingjian's palm in the blink of an eye. A terrifying energy that was comparable to a nuclear missile with a yield of 50 megatons stirred up, turning into pure particle currents that shot out explosively. The god-perishing palm's light pillar not only engulfed the Bryonax light spear, but also destroyed the atmospheric layer within a range of 100 lis. It continued to shoot out, arriving in outer space that was several hundred kilometers away. Looking from a universe, it was as if a light spike had grown out from the ground. Under the terrifying explosion, the entire Sunset Fortress started to sink. Flames, light, and strong gales filled up the entire sky. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. After a total of 20 seconds, the glow from the god-perishing palm gradually dissipated, revealing the fifth prince, who was charred black and had his flesh in tatters, looking like a refugee. If it was not because of the protection from the four-eyed heavenly winged beast will, he would have been smashed into dust by that palm earlier. However, the four-eyed heavenly winged beast was not in a good state either. After all, it had yet to grow up and become a true divine-level ferocious beast. Right now, it was suffering from serious injuries, and 30% of its physical body had been turned into ashes. The martial will that was reinforcing the fifth prince's body was as weak as a layer of thin film. The light pillar had just disappeared when an explosive sound rang out from the ground. Feng Xingjian had already stepped into void space and appeared before the fifth prince like a flash of light. Feng Xingjian reached out with his claw, bringing about a series of explosions in the atmosphere as he grabbed out toward the fifth prince's head. The fifth prince let out a bellow, and the thunder-permeating spear in his hand moved violently like a great electric python, lashing out toward Feng Xingjian. However, right now, the fifth prince was already at the end of his tether. Faced with the fifth prince's explosive attack, Feng Xingjian flicked out a finger and tapped it on the spear's body, snatching the fifth prince's thunder-permeating spear. Feng Xingjian then continued to grab out toward the fifth prince. The fifth prince performed the Taiji fist once again, turning into layers of circular forces to fend off the attacks. However, the difference in strength between him and Feng Xingjian was far too great. Feng Xingjian's punch was completely unreasonable. He activated the violent force in his body and tore through all the forces with a tearing sound, grabbing the fifth prince's neck. Grabbing the fifth prince's neck, Feng Xingjian's tremendous force gushed out, causing the fifth prince's body to tremble until it became numb. The four-eyed heavenly winged beast he was riding on let out a miserable cry, as if it had given up on resisting. "Are you convinced now?" Seeing that he was being lifted up like a little chick, the fifth prince felt as if his pride had been crushed in that instant. Hearing Feng Xingjian's words, the fifth prince's face flushed red. "Feng Xingjian, do you really think that you've won? You've only gained the upper hand temporarily." Long-winded, Feng Xingjian punched out, and the violent power instantly broke several tens of the fifth prince's bones. The fifth prince was unable to speak for a very long time. The fifth prince's face was filled with fury, and the fury in his eyes could burn through the entire world. However, just as he was about to open his mouth, Feng Xingjian let out a cold snort. Then at the next moment, he pressed down on the fifth prince's mouth. With a boom, the fifth prince plunged down rapidly, crashing into the ground. The ground undulated like waves, sending up dust and smoke into the air. The fifth prince's mouth was pressed down, and a huge crater appeared. He was badly mutilated, and he could not even move, let alone speak. After a series of blows, the fifth prince felt as if everything about him was being trampled into pieces. However, he strangely calmed down. At the next moment, a cold will burst out, bringing along the words he wanted to say. "Feng Xingjian, you're good. You're very good. I had thought that I was already extremely talented, rarely seen throughout history. I didn't expect you to be so powerful, to have become my true opponent. However, today's battle is just a temporary defeat. My life has been too smooth sailing, and today's defeat is the best nourishment for my growth. I'll learn from this experience and improve myself, becoming even stronger. The next time we meet, I'll let you know what true terror is. Just as the fifth prince's will was unleashed, Feng Xingjian had already sent out his sword intents to invade the fifth prince's brain. However, he did not succeed. The four-eyed, heavenly winged beast the fifth prince was riding on emitted layers of light, and both his and the fifth prince's bodies continued to turn incorporeal. Feng Xingjian grabbed out with one hand, but it was as if he was grabbing air. Then, with a flash of light, the beast and the fifth prince disappeared completely. Feng Xingjian's brows twitched, and his gaze instantly swept out several tens of kilometers away. Chapter 536. Feng Xingjian was about to give chase when he felt that the thunder-permeating spear in his hand was twitching crazily like a flood dragon, struggling incessantly. Feng Xingjian could only tap out with a finger, and a myriad of white light, bringing along endless power, smashed toward the fifth prince, who was several tens of kilometers away. Concurrently, he exerted force with his palm, causing Gang Chi's to explode as if he had crushed an air bomb. The sword intense in his heart swept out at full power, and only then did the thunder-permeating spear calm down. However, the fifth prince had completely disappeared after being engulfed by the light path. He kept on flashing and leaping crazily in air currents high up in the sky. Each time he darted through void space, he would shift a distance of several tens of kilometers. Most importantly, with such continuous teleportation, it made it impossible for others to track him down. They did not even know which direction he had escaped to. After traveling over 1,000 kilometers, the fifth prince and the four-eyed, heavenly winged beast instantly appeared and tumbled down. The fifth prince stood up with great difficulty. Looking at the four-eyed, heavenly winged beast, which had shrunk to half its original size, its aura was extremely weak, and its eyes were tightly shut. The fifth prince's heart was burning with fury. Looking at the four-eyed, heavenly winged beast's pained expression, the fifth prince felt an extreme pain in his heart. An adult four-eyed, heavenly winged beast was a divine-level ferocious beast. Not only was its physical body extremely powerful, its martial will could engulf the world, and it also possessed the ability to dart through void space and teleport. Right now, the fifth prince's young beast had forcefully unleashed its potential and saved itself and its master. However, this also caused its heavily injured body to become even weaker, and its abilities had regressed to the state it had been several years ago. For the next few years, it would probably not be able to regain its powers that were extremely close to the divine level. Moreover, his thunder-permeating spear had been snatched away as well. With this, he no longer had any trump cards to go up against divine-level experts. He had lost terribly. Chaos Witch, I know you're here. Come out. Didn't you say that my fist arts talent is the best in the world? Why? Why is it that this Feng Xingjian is able to defeat me despite having cultivated for a shorter period of time than me? Sigh. At the next moment, a sigh rang out from the back of the fifth prince's head. Elsewhere in the sky above the Wang clan, Feng Xingjian looked down at the ruins under his feet. His brows furrowed slightly, and then relaxed at the next moment. That's good too. I wasn't planning on killing him anyway. It's just a pity that I didn't manage to keep the infant of that divine-level ferocious beast. After all, Feng Xingjian did not have any blood feud with the fifth prince. Moreover, he still had to deal with the first prince. Once he killed the fifth prince, he would have to face the pressure of the entire empire's royal family. On the other hand, keeping the fifth prince alive could help him share some of the first prince's attacks. As they spoke, Tyrant had already turned back into a Bengal. Feng Xingjian said, "Keep this thunder-permeating spear. It can be added to the materials needed to forge my divine remains equipment." A vortex appeared in the sky. It was the gate of the netherworld, and the thunder-permeating spear was retracted. Next, Feng Xingjian's body flashed, and he returned to the ruins of the Wang family. Everyone from the Wang family looked at this terrifying man before them with fear in their eyes. The eldest Miss, Wang Xiaoyan, looked at Fang Xingjian with an extremely complicated gaze. To think that she had not believed that Fang Xingjian would be able to defeat the fifth prince earlier. However, right before her eyes, he had crushed the fifth prince fair and square, winning without any pressure at all. Looking at the young man who had suppressed so many experts back in the past, Wang Xiaoyan felt a great distance and a great prestige. Fang Xingjian looked at the people from the Wang clan and said, "From today onward, the Wang clan's clan head will still be Wang Xiaoyan. I'll kill anyone who opposes it." His wanton sword intent swept out, causing everyone to be unable to summon any will to resist. The Dark Knight was about to leave with Li Zi when he heard Fang Xingjian say, "Dark Knight, are you planning on leaving just like that? At this time last year, you were still an ordinary level 29 conferred knight. To think that in just one short year, you've already become a demigod with 4 tiers of perfection." "Same here," the Dark Knight said calmly. The Dark Knight said calmly, "1 year ago, you weren't even a conferred knight. Within a short span of 1 year, you've already become a demigod with 2 tiers of deity and can even defeat a 4-eyed heavenly winged beast. Although you're just a young one, your rate of improvement is still astonishing. As for me, the first prince wants the Hell's Map to have 36 divine level experts. In comparison, attaining 4 tiers of perfection within a year is nothing much." Fang Xingjian thought, what means does the first prince have? To think that he can allow his subordinates to improve so quickly? This efficiency is no different from being at the 7th or 8th tier of the mystical prince. Fang Xingjian continued, "Dark Knight, since you're here, let's have a spar. Let me see the first prince's means and the means of your path of hell." Hearing that, the Dark Knight turned and looked at Fang Xingjian with an indifferent expression. "Fang Xingjian, it's true that you're very strong. There probably aren't many people below the divine level who are a match for you. However, you're only below the divine level. Are you still planning on making an enemy out of the first prince? If I don't deal with the first prince, will you let me off?" Fang Xingjian looked at the Dark Knight and said coldly, "Or do you think that at my level of cultivation, I'll still submit to others and beg for mercy?" Seeing that the Dark Knight did not say anything, Fang Xingjian continued, "You're afraid of fighting with me? Does the first prince have a clone in your body? If he is, I wouldn't mind fighting with him." This was also one of Fang Xingjian's doubts. The first prince's 36 Hell's Maps could allow him to sign 36 contractors and place a parasite on them. However, ever since the first prince had attained the divine level, he had retracted all of his clones. Right now, the first prince had succeeded in attaining the divine level. However, when Fang Xingjian was dealing with the swordless Sword Asto and when Tyrant was dealing with the Deputy Governor Benjamin, none of them had encountered the first prince's clone. Even when the Dark Knight was dealing with the fifth prince, he was defeated directly. The first prince's clone had not appeared. However, since the Dark Knight still dared to appear today, he must have some backing. In Fang Xingjian's opinion, there was a high chance that this backing was the first prince's clone. Hearing Fang Xingjian's words, a hint of hesitation flashed on the Dark Knight's face. Just then, streams of black aura emerged from his body, forming a man who wore a crown and was dressed in black and gold robes. He was extremely dignified and domineering, as if he was the center of the entire universe, able to rotate the sun and moon, and able to control the entire universe. This was one of the first prince's clones. All right, there's no harm in letting him know. The first prince looked at Fang Xingjian and said, "In order to go up against the Xingwu region's astral ancestor and blue sacred moonlight, I've retracted all of my clones. I've come here today with the intention of helping the Dark Knight teach that foolish younger brother of mine a lesson. I didn't expect that I wouldn't have to make a move and would be able to witness an exciting battle. Fang Xingjian, I really admire you. Your talent in sword arts is rare in the world. How about it? Do you want to come with me? As long as you're willing to sign the Hell's Map, I'll guarantee that you'll be the Empire's Imperial Preceptor after I inherit the throne. In the future, with the two of us joining forces, we'll be able to dominate the world and unify the human world." Hearing the first prince's words, everyone present was astonished. They had not expected that the first prince would think so highly of Feng Xingjian. Even the Dark Knight's face flashed with a hint of jealousy. However, Feng Xingjian sneered, "George, do you think that I'm a fool? At our level of cultivation, we can fly at an untraceable speed, and we can dominate the world unhindered. How carefree are we? Why would we want to sign your hell's map and betray our own will? The reason why I've called you out today is to tell you that with me around, you can forget about getting your hands on the Great Western region. However many claws you reach out, I'll chop them off. If you don't believe me, you can give a try right now." The first prince smiled coldly and said, "Feng Xingjian, you just want to fight with this clone of mine and test out my power, the power of a divine level expert. It just so happens that I also want to test your sword arts. If your sword arts cultivation is insufficient, I'll suppress both you and the Wang clan today." Chapter 537. As he spoke, the first prince's pitch-black clone put his palms together. As he did this, the entire sky turned dark. It was as if the entire world was changing according to the first prince's actions. What a powerful aura! Feng Xingjian's heart skipped a beat. I mustn't let him continue. At the thought of this, Feng Xingjian did not give the first prince the chance to go all out. His silhouette disappeared, and many infiltrating void swords slashed out. Bang, 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 bang. Air explosions continued to explode around the first prince, but they were unable to shake the first prince's clone in the slightest. As Feng Xingjian slashed out time after time, he felt that the first prince's black body was like the legendary divine remains equipment. It was extremely sturdy and tough, and it contained an aura of darkness, despair, and depravity. It was like a black hole that was about to be born, absorbing and engulfing everything, bringing absolute despair to the mortal world. It kept on absorbing his sword force and sword intent. Tyrant cried out in astonishment. It's the Yama's sacred physique. It's the path of hell's great body-tempering art that refines the materialized will into a special body structure. It's said to be undying and indestructible. The materialization of a divine level experts will naturally had all sorts of applications. There was the 9 heavenly wind thunder tribulation, which Li Shuanghua had comprehended, as well as the legendary physique passed down through generations of the ancient path of hell, the Yama's sacred physique. This Yama, sacred physique, tempered the will, condensing the materialized will into a special structure, forming an extremely powerful body. It's useless, Feng Xingjian. I attained the divine level with 4 tiers of perfection, and my will is as tough as steel. Even if you were 10 times more powerful, you wouldn't be able to slash through the Yama's sacred physique that I condensed with this foundation. Today, I'll let you know how great the difference between a divine level expert and a demigod is. As he spoke, black wool gushed out wildly from the first prince's body. It was as if black clouds had covered up the sky, eventually turning into a huge hand that was several hundred square meters in size and descending from the sky. A terrifying power was emitted from the huge hand, bringing with it an aura of despair, terror, bloodthirst, and brutality. Everyone present seemed to hear the cries of women, the agonizing cries of men, the sorrowful howls of the elderly, and the cries of children. As the first prince put his palms together and made a simple action of manifesting his will, the entire world turned dark. It was as if they had gone from the mortal world to hell. Take my move, overturned hell. The huge, pitch-black palm descended from the sky, pressing down on the void inch by inch. Countless distorted rays of light appeared in the space, and then cracks appeared in the void. Feng Xingjian's figure suddenly appeared, and he was actually forced out of the spatial cracks by the palm. Space was constantly being stretched and distorted, and cracks were appearing from the vibrations. How terrifying was this power? What's more, this palm strike was imbued with the willpower of hell and the destruction of the human world. Before the palm strike even arrived, It was already enough to cause one's mind to go insane and die. Faced with the palm that descended from the sky, Fang Xingjian's eyes narrowed like those of a cat. Streams of cold light flashed in his eyes, and his sword fingers moved as he activated the light pursuit sword ripples. In that instant, several million streams of sword ripples slashed out, causing the atmosphere to explode and slashing onto the huge black hand. In that instant, a myriad of sparks were created, forcefully slashing out large areas of fire clouds in the sky at high speed. However, even though millions of sword ripples were slashed out consecutively, it was as if an ordinary knight was striking a rock with his iron sword. Other than causing sparks all over the place, there was no effect at all. What a strong martial will. If my martial will is wood and Li Shuanghua's martial will is rock, then the first prince's martial will that forms the Yama's sacred physique is like the heaven's volition sword intent. It's at the level of steel. Faced with the incoming huge black palm, Fang Xingjian let out a furious bellow and finally performed the fourth sword of the 5 god-slaying swords, the all-conquering sword. In an instant, many black lines streaked out. Demolition sword lights were contained within them, and the connections between the physical particles were severed. Everywhere they passed by, everything would be destroyed, and the world would shatter. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. His sword swept across the huge black palm a few times, but it was far from being able to cut through everything like it had in the past when he used all-conquering. It was because as Fang Xingjian continued to slash out with his sword, leaving behind several huge wounds on the huge palm, he could sense that not only were there layers of martial will within the huge palm, but there were also violent powers that distorted space, forming a curved spatial structure. This made it extremely difficult for him to slash out. However, just as he was about to unleash another few hundred sword strikes with all his might to destroy the giant palm, the giant palm suddenly exploded in an instant and scattered in all directions. An earth-shattering wail accompanied by billowing black gas swept out in all directions. The sky regained its brightness, and everyone felt as if they had just survived a calamity. Fang Xingjian stood in midair, looking at the spot where the first prince had been. The latter had already disappeared. Fang Xingjian, you're really the genius that I regard highly. Your sword arts are already the best amongst those below the divine level. However, from today onward, I'll really treat you as my enemy. The next time I make my move, I'll definitely go all out. You better be careful. As the voice drifted away, the first prince and the other 2 completely disappeared. What an overturned hell. Even though I managed to slash through his martial will, he detonated the huge palm himself, causing even my consciousness to tremble. All sorts of dark and despairing auras have invaded my senses. And this is just one of his clones. Divine-level experts on the path of knights are really amazing. This is especially so for the first prince. His experience in fights of magical powers far surpasses that of ordinary people. I broke through his overturned hell, but he immediately turned the tables on me. Tyron said fiercely, "Aren't you going to kill them?" Wiping out one of the first prince's clones can weaken a hint of his powers. It's not the time to go all out yet. Fang Xingjian shook his head. If we go all out now, others will only benefit from it. Right now, the first prince's actual body had to deal with the 2 divine-level experts, the Astral Ancestor and the Blue Sacred Moonlight. He was unwilling to cause unnecessary trouble, which was why Fang Xingjian and the 5th prince were able to gain some advantage. In particular, Fang Xingjian had displayed overwhelming abilities when he was in an intense battle with the 5th prince earlier. This made the first prince unwilling to divert his attention to Fang Xingjian. However, at the same time, once the first prince suppressed the Xingwu region and digested the spoils of war from the 2 divine-level experts, there would be another explosive growth in his abilities. By then, there would probably be no one in the entire empire who would be able to stop him. Right now, what Fang Xingjian wanted to do was to increase his abilities before the first prince succeeded, so that he would have the power to go up against the first prince. Moreover, the first prince only wanted to focus on suppressing the 2 divine-level experts. Therefore, the 2 of them showed great restraint. This was because the two of them had too many enemies. Therefore, without an absolute, overwhelming battle prowess, they were unwilling to go all out. They were afraid that the other princes, divine-level experts, and people from the Serene Shrine would take advantage of them. But this time around, I've finally probed the first prince's abilities. When one reached the divine level on the Path of Knights, they might not have as many additional abilities as magic prince warriors and mages. However, the strength of the martial will that comes from attaining perfection in the physical body far surpasses that of magic prince warriors and mages. This is especially so for legacies like the ancient Path of Hell. The way they apply their martial will is not something that a person like Li Shuanghua can compare to. If I were to activate the Heaven's Volition Sword Intent, I should be able to exchange blows with the first prince. If I were to add the instant sword into the mix, I might be able to gain a slight upper hand. However, the duration of the Heaven's Volition Sword Intent is limited. Once the first prince is able to hold on until the Heaven's Volition Sword Intent is activated, I'll be the one who loses. Moreover, I have no idea what other secret arts the ancient Path of Hell has. Today, Fang Xingjian finally had a better grasp of the first prince's abilities. He understood that if he wanted to go up against the first prince, he would have to at least attain 5 tiers of perfection. If he wished to defeat or even kill the first prince, he would have to strive for the divine level. One day later, Fang Xingjian stayed in the Wang clan study and started reading through the various manuals that the Wang clan had brought over from the Western land. Wang Xiaoyan sat at the side, propping up her chin with one hand and looking at Fang Xingjian with her big eyes. It was as if she wanted to see some secrets from Fang Xingjian's face. Chapter 538. The cultivators in the Western land are known as cultivators. They are also split into levels 1 to 30, the first transition and second transition divine level. The first tier of the divine level allows the consciousness to materialize. The will becomes power and can interfere with the physical world. The second tier of the divine level allows the will to transform into flesh and blood. Unless the consciousness is destroyed, the physical body will be almost indestructible. The third tier of the divine level allows the physical body and strength to be forged using ether particles, connecting with all the ether particles in the world. The energy will be endless, and the strength will almost never be depleted. The fourth tier of the divine level allows the consciousness to receive future information from ether particles. The consciousness will also be able to sense fortune and misfortune. Fang Xingjian looked at the secret manual in his hand. It contained the Mountainous Seed Dynasty's research on the divine level. It was a pity that although the Mountainous Seed Dynasty was powerful, they had not experienced any world metamorphosis. Therefore, they only knew about the first 4 tiers of the divine level. As for the words written on it, they were words that were close to the Heaven's Volition Sword Intent and the Chinese characters of Earth's Xian country. Western land, Heaven's Volition Sword Intent, Xian country. Looking at these words, Fang Xingjian felt that there seemed to be a series of mysterious connections. However, this was not the time to unravel these. Fang Xingjian placed more of his attention on the content itself. So that's how it is. Is this how divine level experts are divided? There's a limit to the physical strength, but the power of the will can expand endlessly. Fang Xingjian then flipped open another book and sighed. If the ether particles continue to delve deeper, when the microscopic level reaches a certain extreme, one will be able to sense that there are many world passageways that can lead to all sorts of unknown time and space. These are the so-called worlds beyond the heavens. Therefore, diabolic energy is transmitted from ether particles. This is why the powers of mages, magic prince warriors, and knights are so similar. And the method to attain the divine level requires one to gather all the powers in one's body into a single will, entering deep into the ether particles at one go. In the microscopic world, one will be able to smash through the world passageway and break through the world's restraints. It's a pity that the distance of the world passageway is too great. Even divine level experts will not be able to pass through it in their entire lives. Only existences like the evil gods from beyond the heavens will be able to transmit their powers through the spatial passageway. But after entering the world passage, you will be able to obtain the core secrets of countless worlds and obtain a lot of rank 3 information. Striving for the divine level was to use one's unparalleled willpower to break through the world's passageway, charging in at one go. The further one charged, the more information one would obtain, and the stronger the job they went through would be. After attaining the divine level, they would become even more powerful. Feng Xingjian suddenly thought of the legend of a world in a grain of sand. He had not expected that the ether particles that formed everything in the world would really contain other worlds. As long as he passed through the world passageway, he would be able to reach the world beyond the heavens. How similar was this to the legend of a world in a grain of sand? However, the world passage was not easy to pass through. It was possible to encounter all sorts of dangers, so one needed an extremely powerful will. The stronger one's will was, the longer one could travel through the world passage, and the more information one would obtain about the job advancement quest. Only then would one become a god. If the third transition job was not powerful enough, they might forever be stuck at tier 1 of the divine level. Therefore, the path of night can temper one's physical strength. When striving for the divine level, one will be able to transform all of the physical strength into one's will, unleashing a world-shaking power that allows one to break through the world's passageway and complete the job transition. This is the reason why knights are stronger than magic prince warriors, even though they are both at the divine level. However, this isn't absolute. As long as one's will is strong enough and they know about this information in advance, magic prince warriors and mages can also use various secret arts to strengthen their achievements in the third transition. All sorts of information regarding divine level experts kept on flashing through Feng Xingjian's mind. He now had a clear grasp of the path he would take to strive for 5 tiers of perfection and attain the divine level. As long as I attain 5 tiers of perfection, my powers after striving for the divine level will far surpass that of the first prince. However, if I can also complete specialty seeds, other than the 1,440 internal specializations, I'll also be able to complete 9,270 external specializations. If my heavenly thunders and terrestrial magnetism forces can break through the limits of level 29 and reach the level of a divine remains equipment, then how powerful will my third transition job be? If I can defeat the first prince and have the ability to dominate a region amongst the divine level experts, then I'll have enough confidence to head to the city of universal truth in the north to search for my mother's remains. Thinking of his mother and that black-clothed man, Feng Xingjian's countenance turned slightly grim. In order to get to the bottom of everything, to understand his mother's secret, to understand his talent, and what had happened to his 5 years of lifespan, he would need to find that black-clothed man and possess great power. Feng Xingjian scanned through the information regarding the Mountainous Sea Dynasty, looking at the jobs such as the Green Lotus Sword Immortal, Old Ancestor, Nual Warrior, and so on. These were all third transition jobs unique to the Western land and were filled with the culture and aura of that place. Feng Xingjian then took out many manuals regarding the Mountainous Sea Dynasty. Simultaneously, he continued to scan them with his heaven's perception, continuously consolidating his accumulations. Wang Xiaoyan said, "Why? You're still looking at these things?" I say that it's not a big deal that our race has lost too much of their legacies. Otherwise, it wouldn't be that only my uncle has managed to attain 1 tier of perfection over the past 100 years with the help of the world's metamorphosis. Moreover, after looking at the treasure map I gave you, don't you want to try the Panwu Heavenly Raiment? With your talent and abilities, if you can get your hands on the Panwu Heavenly Raiment, it's not impossible for you to unify the world in the future. You must know that the Panwu Heavenly Raiment is said to have the power to unify the world. Hearing Wang Xiaoyan's explanation, Feng Xingjian shook his head. I'll go get the Panwu Heavenly Raiment now. Putting aside whether or not I'll be able to successfully suppress and use it, both the first prince and the fifth prince already know of the existence of the Panwu Heavenly Raiment. How can they not pay attention to my actions? If I head over there now, they'll definitely think that I'm the oriole behind the mantis stalking the cicada. Therefore, before I have decisive power, I won't have any designs on the pawn with heavenly raiment. All right, what you say makes sense. Wang Xiaoyan propped up her chin and looked at Fang Xingjian. She smiled and said, "Then when are we going to set off for the great western city? This time around, I'm going to move the entire Wang clan over and make you my backer. This will prevent others from having designs on our Wang clan." "It's fine. You guys can take your time and pack up. I'll also be staying here for a few more days to read through these manuals in your clan and increase my accumulation in martial arts." As he said that, Fang Xingjian continued to focus on reading through the various manuals next to him. Although most of these manuals from the Mountainous dynasty had become incomplete during their escape, the parts that were left behind still contained a tremendous amount of profound cultivation theories and knowledge. There were many introductions regarding the first 4 tiers of the divine level. These were all things that Fang Xingjian needed very much, but had not been able to find out about. Is the cultivation above the divine level to attain a breakthrough to the 9-tiered heavens? Striving for the divine level requires one to start from the smallest aspects, breaking through the world's passageway in the ether particles and obtaining the crucial information for the 3rd transition, the profoundness of the world. After attaining the divine level, each breakthrough to the next tier of the divine level requires one to start from the largest aspect, breaking through the 9-tiered heavens that encompasses the entire world. These 2 aspects contained all the profoundness of the divine level. The smallest ether particles in the world hid the world's passageway and the method to attain a breakthrough to the divine level. Moreover, the world's boundary, which encompassed the entire world, hid the profoundness of the cultivation after the divine level. According to the Mountainous dynasty's manuals, the so-called 9-tiered heavens was a sphere. The sky above was the cloud layer, followed by the outer space, the sun, and the starry sky that was originally spoken of in the legends. The end of the sphere was the end of the world's boundary. It was fine if the density of ether particles in the world was not high. However, after the world's metamorphosis, the number of ether particles in the world increased. These ether particles continued to affect each other and press against each other. They would continue to press against the entire outer space until they reached a limit that they could spread out to. This was the so-called world's boundary. All the ether particles would eventually accumulate at this world's boundary, with the sphere as the center and the world's boundary at the end of the sky as the boundary. Layers after layers of extremely thick ether particles were formed. The closer one was to the world's boundary, the more extraordinary the density of ether particles would be. It was because the density of ether particles far surpassed what humans could imagine. Under such a high density of ether particles, all sorts of information and energy would gather together, forming many strange phenomena that contained the profoundness of each tier of the divine level. To attain a breakthrough to the divine level, one would have to break through the 9 levels of ether particle layers. With each layer of profoundness that was comprehended, one would be able to attain a breakthrough to the divine level. The entire process contained a state of breaking through the world's restraints, using the human body to transcend the world. However, Fang Xingjian had not even reached the divine level, so it was useless for him to continue reading these. He picked up another manual that was purplish gold in color and seemed to have been created from some unknown material. It was the martial arts that the Mountainous dynasty's founding ancestor had cultivated over the past 100 years that no one in the Wang clan had comprehended. The Mountainous Book of the Way. Chapter 539. Longevity was like a god. Longevity was omnipotent. Fate was qi, and those with a strong fate were invincible. Fang Xingjian flipped to the first page of the Mountain and Seas Book of the Way. There were 2 sentences on it, which explained the mysterious relationship between longevity and fate. It seemed to contain an incomparably profound truth. Fang Xingjian continued to flip through the pages and discovered that the Mountainous Seas Book of the Way was indeed obscure, abstruse, and extremely profound. In particular, The path of cultivation proposed in it was the complete opposite of the knight's cultivation philosophy. In other words, the cultivators of the entire Western continent valued their lifespan more than power in battle. The divine-level experts in Miracle World only had a lifespan of 200 years at most. Compared to their endless powers, their lifespan appeared far too small. On the other hand, the cultivators of the Western continent focused more on their lifespan. Legend had it that the most powerful among them could even live up to 3,000 years. The so-called omnipotence of longevity referred to the fact that one's lifespan was long enough and had limitless possibilities. The Mountainous Seas Book of the Way thoroughly explained the concept of lifespan. Moreover, it was possible to extract the power of lifespan to strengthen oneself, and it was also possible to extract power to increase one's lifespan. In other words, after cultivating the Mountain and Seas Book of the Way, one's lifespan and strength could be converted. For example, if a person had a lifespan of 90 years in the future, he could use these 90 years to strengthen himself, leaving himself only 1 day of lifespan. On the second day, he would be able to convert his power into 1 more day of lifespan. This way, he would always have 1 day of lifespan, and the remaining lifespan would be stored and converted into his own power, giving him a great power that he had never possessed before. According to the legends, when this martial art was cultivated to the highest realm, one would be able to transform the power cultivated into an unlimited amount of lifespan. In the end, one would be able to live as long as the heavens and earth, as bright as the sun and moon. When a person had an unlimited lifespan, he would be able to refine an unlimited amount of power. It could be said that this was a unique martial art that did not belong to any of the nurturing, training, amassing, or killing techniques. However, the last part of the description was too mysterious and vague. Fang Xingjian did not believe it. What he was interested in now was the result of practicing this martial art. Thus, Fang Xingjian began the first step of cultivating the Mountainous Seas Book of the Way, longevity observation. This step was to meditate, and use a 100% ether synchronization rate to store one's thoughts in silence. Then one would be able to capture information about one's lifespan from the endless ether particles that formed up one's physical body. The human body continued to enlarge, starting from the muscles and bones, followed by the cells, and then the physical particles. This was also the limit that ordinary second transition experts could reach. If they wanted to progress further, they would have to form the ether particles that formed the physical particles. Ether particles were both particles and waves. In order to find information about one's lifespan from the ether particles that formed one's body, one would need to have unparalleled talent. This was also the reason why no one in the Wang clan had managed to successfully cultivate the Mountainous Seas Great Tao Scripture for over 100 years. However, this was something that no one in the Wang clan had been able to do over the past 100 years. Right now, Fang Xingjian, who possessed the world's best sword arts talent and had 9 levels of mystical prints, was able to do it easily. Information about longevity, life, spirit, and chi flowed out of his body. Lines of mysterious scriptures seemed to be floating in the air. Fang Xingjian felt that his consciousness seemed to be delving deeper into the microscopic world, into the ether particles, following the guidance of the mysterious scriptures in the Mountainous Seas Great Tao. Very soon, he saw a series of numbers: 2 years, 360 days, 14 hours, 25 minutes, and 23 seconds. The numbers continued to shrink. This was Fang Xingjian's lifespan, which was less than 3 years. It meant that when this time was up, no matter how strong his physical body was or how strong his will was, he would die. He did not know the theory behind this, but this was what Fang Xingjian had understood from the ether particles. As expected, I really did have 5 years of lifespan left back then. After completing the first step of viewing one's lifespan, Fang Xingjian started to attempt the next step. He wanted to try to see if his strength could be exchanged for his lifespan. Although it was generally said that it was a conversion between strength and lifespan, the Mountainous Seas Great Tao Scripture still had a specific reference to strength. In the entire scripture, The mountainous sea's great Tao scripture was divided into 3 tiers. At the first tier, which was the first transition, one's lifespan could be converted with one's proficiency in techniques. At the second tier, which was the second transition, one's lifespan could be converted with one's specialty seeds, physical particles, and one's body's toughness. At the third tier, when a cultivator attained the divine level, one's lifespan could be converted directly into the power of one's martial will. It was a pity that the mountainous sea's great Tao scripture had been lost by the Wang clan. Even if Fang Xingjian wanted to cultivate after attaining the divine level, he would not be able to do so. This meant that Fang Xingjian could now go through the conversion of one's proficiency in techniques, specialty seeds, physical particles, body's toughness, and lifespan. Out of these, the proficiency in techniques was the thing that Fang Xingjian did not care about the most. It was also the first target that he had chosen. Therefore, an extremely vast aura encompassed him. At the next moment, he felt that the information regarding the ether divine art in his consciousness had started to burn up. Accompanied by the burning information, the numbers on the ether divine art's stats window jumped abruptly, rising from level 12 to level 11. However, when Fang Xingjian looked at his lifespan, he realized that there was no increase at all. He frowned and continued the conversion. He felt that the ether divine art's proficiency was decreasing rapidly, and its level continued to drop as well. Anyway, with his current sword arts cultivation, the ether divine art was no longer essential. Therefore, he decided to convert all the proficiency in the ether divine art into his lifespan. An explosive rumble seemed to ring out in void space, and Fang Xingjian felt that everything about the ether divine art had been completely incinerated and disappeared from his mind. The ether divine art skill was also completely gone from his stats window. However, when he looked at his lifespan, there was still no increase at all. Fang Xingjian let out a bitter breath. As expected, the person who had taken away his lifespan back then was not that simple. The mountainous rivers of the Wei's method of increasing one's lifespan had no effect at all. Fang Xingjian shook his head and started experimenting with the next step, which was to convert his lifespan into power. He had already attained perfection in his physical particles, and the proficiency in techniques was something that he needed the least. His body's toughness had already reached level 29, which was the limit that a conferred knight could reach. This meant that the only thing that could be converted from his lifespan was specialty seeds. It was a pity that, based on what the Book of the Way had said, if one were to use one's lifespan to instantly condense a complete specialty seed, it would require at least 1 month of one's lifespan. It was really not worth it. Fang Xingjian was left with less than 3 years of his lifespan. He would die after condensing several tens of specialty seeds. It's still better than nothing. I'll just give it a try. At the critical moment, I'll also have many means to risk my life. By this time, Fang Xingjian had already become disappointed with the mountainous seas of the Wei. It was a good martial art, but it was a pity that it was useless to him. At the next moment, Fang Xingjian started to circulate the mountainous seas of the Wei's technique. A profound aura of lifespan, time, decay, and new life spread out from his body. Fang Xingjian felt as if something was being drawn out from void space and condensed in his body, helping him condense specialty seeds. However, after condensing only 0.1%, Fang Xingjian stopped what he was doing. He was only giving a try and did not really plan on using his lifespan to exchange for power. However, at the next moment, Fang Xingjian's eyes opened abruptly, and 3 feet of sword light burst out. His eyes were filled with disbelief. To think that my lifespan didn't decrease? This did not bring him a pleasant surprise. Instead, it brought him an inexplicable feeling of astonishment. It was as if someone had whispered into his ear, "If I want you to die, I want you to die 3 years later. Not even 1 second more or 1 second less will do." At this moment, Fang Xingjian suddenly understood that his lifespan was no longer a matter of his lifespan and his life. Instead, it had risen to the level of karma and karma. Chapter 540. It could be said that even when Fang Xingjian had killed Li Shuanghua, fought against the first prince, and encountered all sorts of difficulties and enemies, he had never displayed such a dazed expression before. Just as Fang Xingjian was in a daze, Wang Xiaoyan sensed his continuous changes in aura and could not help but say, "You've successfully cultivated the Mountainous Seas Book of the Way? Is that for real? You've really managed to master it?" Fang Xingjian let out a long breath, planning on not caring about his lifespan for now. No matter what, if he could really draw out his lifespan at will to condense specialty seeds, it would at least be a good thing for now. With that, he flew out with a flash, arriving 1,000 meters up in the sky. He did not wish for others to see what he was going to do next. After arriving high up in the sky, Fang Xingjian once again circulated the Mountainous Seas Book of the Way at full power. This time around, crackling sounds kept ringing out in Fang Xingjian's mind, and he felt as if something in void space was burning up fiercely. It was as if a large basin of water had been added into a pot of boiling oil. Amidst explosive sounds, an indescribable and undetectable terrifying power entered Fang Xingjian's body. A soft boom rang out, and a specialty seed instantly condensed on Fang Xingjian's arm. However, this was just the beginning. In void space, a certain substance that represented one's lifespan burned increasingly intensely, and a series of bang, 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 bang explosive sounds flashed on Fang Xingjian's body. The sounds rang out continuously, and each explosive sound represented that a specialty seed had become slightly more condensed. For an entire day and night, Fang Xingjian just stayed high up in the sky to cultivate. As his lifespan burned crazily, the number of specialty seeds on Fang Xingjian's body also increased rapidly. Although he had been cultivating hard for the past few months, he had only managed to increase the number of specialty seeds to 402. However, within a short period of time, with the burning of his lifespan, the number of specialty seeds he had became 600, 800, 1,000, 1,200. With a loud boom, the auras of 1,440 specialty seeds rose up from Fang Xingjian's body. A power that was like a great river was seething intensely in Fang Xingjian's body. At this moment, Fang Xingjian could feel that every single muscle fiber and tendon in his body possessed the power to crush mountains and seas, overturn rivers and seas. The third tier of specialty seeds was completed. However, this was not the end. In the space around Fang Xingjian, streams of aura began to rise. After completing the internal specialization, he began to condense the external specialization. The internal specialty seed was within one's physical body, while the external specialty seed was directly condensed in the void around one's body. It did not represent one's physical abilities, but various special specialties such as darkness sword sense and supreme sword intent. With this, Fang Xingjian continued to burn the power of his lifespan to condense the external specialty seed. The entire sky was filled with strong gales, lightning, and thunder. Fang Xingjian's entire body curled up, as if some astonishing divine fetus was about to be hatched. Streams of aura rose up around Fang Xingjian's body one after another, and the external specialty seeds were condensed by his lifespan. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, after a total of 7 days and 7 nights passed. Fang Xingjian seemed to be breaking through like a hot knife through butter. Without any hesitation, he continued to cultivate high up in the sky. Then the auras of 9,270 external specialty seeds rose up. At this moment, Fang Xingjian had attained both internal and external perfection in the aspect of specialty seeds. Waves of extremely terrifying physical strength circulated in Fang Xingjian's body. Fang Xingjian slowly loosened up his curled-up body, feeling that his entire body was filled with energy and that there was an endless amount of power in his body. His mind was extremely clear, and all sorts of electromagnetic, radiation, and light paths continued to be engulfed by his body. Attacks from high temperatures, low temperatures, strong acids, and strong bases were no longer able to harm his body in the slightest. At this moment, Fang Xinjian could truly sense that his physical strength had reached a limit. This meant that from now on, unless he were to attain a breakthrough to the divine level, his physical strength would not be able to increase in the slightest, no matter how hard he cultivated. He had 1,440 internal specialties, 9,270 external specialties, and 1.08 billion physical particles. Together, they had unleashed his physical strength to its limits. With a casual punch, sword force gushed out violently, propelling air currents and forming a stream of sword chi that was several kilometers long and over 1,000 meters wide. It swept out, instantly breaking through the cloud layers and shooting out toward outer space. Just this stream of sword chi alone was enough to destroy the sunset fortress under his feet. Right now, Fang Xingjian's physical strength had reached such a level. Tyron was also extremely astonished. What a terrifying martial art! He has attained perfection in both his internal and external specialties. There hasn't been anyone like this since ancient times. This kind of physical strength is too terrifying. Probably even Tier 1 divine level experts don't have such physical strength. Even the power formed from the materialization of their will isn't this terrifying. Right now, Fang Xingjian's physical strength is already extremely close to the divine level, putting aside the enhancement from the Heaven's Volition Sword intent. It's just that he doesn't have the ability to materialize his will. In terms of pure force output, he has already surpassed most Tier 1 divine level experts. If he were to strive for the divine level in the future, how powerful would the will transform from such a terrifying vital energy and blood body be? Fang Xingjian exhaled, and a stream of white cheese turned into a stream of white light. It swept across the ground in the distance like sword light, and with a rumble, a huge crater with an area of several hundred square meters was created. The white cheese that he exhaled were condensed like white light. Even after being ejected over 1,000 meters away, it still had the prowess of a bomb. What kind of exhaling ability was this? What kind of internal organ function was this? What kind of powerful physical strength was this? Very good. After I return to the Great Western region and complete the 10 levels of the Mystical Prince, I'll start attempting to strive for the brain regeneration realm. Once my brain regeneration is successful and I've completed the 4 tiers of perfection, most Tier 1 divine level experts won't be a match for me. I'll then go get the Panwu heavenly raiment. I won't have to worry about people wanting to take advantage of me. While Fang Xingjian was cultivating the Mountainous Seas Book of the Way and striving for perfection in his specialties for 8 days and 8 nights, Anthony had also reached the final step in his collection of Mystical Prints. Anthony arrived outside a training room. The door opened, and 2 men were seen floating in midair. Their bodies were covered in mysterious, bizarre, and boundlessly profound patterns that kept on flashing. Simultaneously, every piece of flesh on their bodies seemed to be shattering and then reassembling. Their brains, in particular, also showed signs of shattering and reassembling. The 2 of them were Governor Devitt and Head of Department James, who had been cultivating the 5 levels of the Mystical Prince consecutively for the past few days and then attained a breakthrough to the brain regeneration realm. The 2 of them were great geniuses to begin with. It was just that they had not had enough fortuitous encounters and accumulation, which was why they had not been able to attain 1 tier of perfection. However, they had accumulated several years or decades of experience in the area of physical regeneration. This time around, the moment they reached the 5 levels of the Mystical Prince, they instantly attained a breakthrough to the 1st tier of perfection in brain regeneration and reached the demigod realm. Head of Department James laughed out loud and said, "Excellent. The prowess of these Mystical Prince is really terrifying. I feel that my intelligence, memories, and talent have all gone through a qualitative change. It won't be long before I'll be able to attain perfection in my body's toughness and become a demigod with 2 tiers of perfection." Governor Devitt looked at Anthony and asked, "What's wrong, Anthony? Why have you come?" Chapter 541. Anthony did not say anything and handed over a document. Governor Devitt was stunned for a moment. After scanning it with his heaven's perception, he raised his brows and said, "The method to condense 1,440 specialty seeds? Where did you get this from?" Although the second prince has the royal family's legacy, due to the rules, he is unable to impart it to us. If this were to be leaked out, it would probably be enough to buy the entire regional academy. Looking at the document in his hand, Governor Devitt was slightly agitated. Right now, with the 5 levels of the mystical prince, the world's metamorphosis, and a method to condense 1,440 specialty seeds, he was confident that he would be able to strive for the divine level within a few years. Hearing Governor Devitt's question, Anthony smiled and said, "This is something Xinjiang gathered from the many factions in the Great Western region." Head of Department James smiled and said, "He really has a good plan. But for you to give it to us so directly, you probably have something to ask of us, right?" Anthony said, "That's right. There's one more thing that I'll have to trouble the two of you with." James said, "Oh, what is it?" "We'll definitely help if we can." This time around, the help from the mystical prince had made both him and Devitt very happy. This was especially so for James, who was already nearing the end of his lifespan. With the help of the mystical prince, he might just be able to successfully strive for the divine level and live for many more years. This was a great favor. Anthony said, "Out of the materials we've gathered for Xinjiang, there are still a few crucial ones that we haven't received. They are all in the hands of some powerful characters. Although we've offered a high price for them, they are unwilling to give them up. They are all extremely rare materials, and there are even a few experts among them. Lilia, Anderson, Zhou Xingwen, and the others have all set off. However, there are still 2 places that we have no way of reaching." It turned out that Anthony had helped Feng Xinjiang gather the materials for the 10th level of the mystical prince. However, the materials needed for this level of the mystical prince were far too rare. Moreover, some of them were heirlooms and treasures of other people. How could they possibly take them out so easily? This would require them to pay a visit personally, using both martial prowess and money. James smiled and nodded. "I understand. Then, Devitt, let's make a trip down personally." As Feng Xinjiang started to gather the materials for the last level of the mystical prince, and as the traces of the last few materials appeared, the experts on Feng Xinjiang's side made their moves one after another, stirring up even more waves in the gradually chaotic world. BI's continent, Xianming Dojo. With a loud bang, a figure smashed through the entire outer wall and was buried under the bricks. In the courtyard behind the outer wall, Anderson looked at the hundreds of disciples of the Xianming Dojo surrounding him and said lightly, "According to the agreement, I defeated your curator, so your Xianming treasured sword will belong to me. Of course, I need a material from your Xianming treasured sword, but I won't take it away for free." As he spoke, Anderson took out a stack of notes and said, "Here are 3 million gold coins, enough to buy 30 Xianming clubs. Take it as the money for me to buy your Xianming treasured sword." As he finished speaking, countless disciples turned their gazes towards the 3 million figure. Their hostility had mostly dissipated. In an extremely humid forest in the southern Flame State, Lilia shuttled through the forest like a gentle breeze. Streams of air wrapped around her body. She was like a swallow, flying freely, shuttling through the forest at high speed. However, her body was not tainted by a single speck of dust. Furthermore, she was carrying a huge box on her back. It seemed to weigh several hundred jin, but it did not affect her movements in the slightest. Just like that, she came to the side of the camp alone. The moment she appeared, dozens of warriors surrounded her. Among them, a burly man whose face was covered in tattoos smiled and said, "What a beautiful young lady. Why did you think of coming to our place?" Lilia said calmly, "People from the Bloodclaw tribe? I want the head of the blood-howling beast used for your sacrificial ritual. Name a price." After half an hour of explosions, flames, tremors, and exclamations, the entire Bloodclaw tribe was in a state of chaos. There were broken trees, overturned houses, and people crying out in shock. Lilia walked out with a huge beast bone in her hand. Behind her was an entire box of gold. Countless warriors from the tribe started to fight for the gold, no longer caring about the beast bone used for the sacrificial ritual. On the plains at the borders of the Bi's region, a myriad of beasts ran amok. Countless ferocious beasts turned into waves, screaming as they ran for their lives. In the sky behind them, Governor Devitt stood quietly as several hundred ice dragons chased after countless ferocious beasts. His consciousness continued to receive light and sound waves, as if he was searching for something. Finally, his gaze narrowed as he looked toward a leopard over 10 kilometers away. "I found you, Les." In that instant, several hundred ice dragons chased after that leopard, and thunderous sounds exploded. "Les, you won't be able to escape. Hand over the crimson bloodstone that you stole." In the northern ice region, in the white snow plains, in the dried-up pitch-black forest, on the precipitous cliffs, an old man and a young man were fighting against the bottomless abyss before them. The old man was dressed in white robes and had a turtle's back. His eyes shone with a hint of bright light, giving off an ethereal and illusory feeling. The young man was full of vigor, attacking the old man incessantly like a little leopard. The young man dashed left and right, moving at high speed along the edge of the cliff. His fists were like many meteors, slashing out streams of sharp light that could cut through the air. They connected together into a meteor shower, encompassing toward the old man. However, no matter how fiercely the young man attacked, they were all easily blocked by the old man. After half an hour of attacking and defending, the old man pushed the young man away and said, "All right, take a break." "Phew." The young man let out a breath, and a stretch of white air currents immediately appeared by his mouth. It showed how low the temperature on the snowy mountain cliff was. He said, "Master, when can I go through the second transition? I've been stuck at level 19 for 3 years." The old man shook his head and said, "Did you receive some kind of shock from the news?" Hee. The young man scratched his head and said, "Right now, everyone in the Empire is saying that there's a sword, a saber, and a fist. The sword is Fang Xinjian, the saber is Dongfang Ling, and the fist is the fifth prince, Crack Creek. They say that they're the 3 people with the greatest talent, and that they're the young geniuses who have the highest chance of attaining the divine level in the future. They're about the same age as me. I really want to catch up to them quickly and have a spar with them." "It's understandable for young people to be hot-blooded," the old man said. "But it's precisely because of this that one must know how to accumulate. Many knights nowadays don't understand the concept of accumulating strength and are in a rush to attain the second transition. However, they don't know that after the second transition, one's potential will dissipate. Especially when there are more temptations and fewer threats in the world, they won't be able to focus on training their will." Chapter 542. The old man pointed to the cliff and said, "It's just like this 100,000 zhang cliff. Right now, you can use it to train your will, but if you reach the second transition, you won't even die if you fall down. What's the use then? What you need to do now is to continue accumulating at level 19 and focus on polishing your martial will. Although you're only at level 19, your heaven's perception has been perfected a long time ago, and your martial will is not weaker than most level 29 knights. I want you to continue accumulating. After you attain the second transition, you'll be able to break through to level 29 within a short period of time. Then, you'll be able to break through to the second tier, or even the third tier, or even the fourth tier of perfection, becoming a demigod. This will be even more beneficial to your future cultivation. As for Dongfang Ling, Fang Xinjian, and the fifth prince, don't think that they're amazing just because they've reached the demigod realm easily. For them, it was easy in the beginning and difficult in the later stages. At their cultivation level, it was too difficult to temper their martial will. But for you, it'll be easy at first. After you attain the second transition, you'll be able to surpass them in all aspects within 1 to 2 months. Really, Master? Of course. Don't compare yourself to Fang Xinjian, Dongfang Ling, and the fifth prince. There are countless geniuses who became demigods in one go when they were young due to their talent. Your goal in the future is to reach the divine level at the very least and leave your name in history. The old man said with certainty, on the path of martial arts, the will is the most important. However, the stronger one is, the harder it is to train one's will. On the contrary, the weaker one is the world is filled with training. It can constantly train your will and help you build an extremely sturdy foundation. Well said. Just as the old man and the young man were preaching, Head of Department James walked out slowly. He looked at the two of them and said, on the path of martial arts, the will is the most important. However, the stronger one is, the harder it is to train one's will. The understanding of the physical body and will is really unique. The old man threw a glance at James and said calmly, you've been hiding at the side for long enough. I wonder who it is that wants to find trouble with two nameless people like us. You're not a nameless person. James smiled. 10 years ago, the hot-blooded divine might dominated the river transport in the entire northern ice region. Their leader, Wang Huan, was known as the Black Dragon King and was a powerful level 29 warrior. However, the Black Dragon King was later defeated by the Fist Emperor, and the hot-blooded godly might was annexed by the Great River Alliance. The Black Dragon King disappeared completely, but it was rumored that he had hidden away with the wealth of the hot-blooded godly might. He was secretly grooming a successor in preparation to take revenge on the Great River Alliance. The Fist Emperor was one of the top 10 divine-level experts in the world, and the Great River Alliance was the underworld faction that he had founded. They ruled over the entire empire's 72 waterways. The fifth prince had once said that he had become sworn brothers with the Fist Emperor, causing everyone to be astonished. Hearing James' words, the old man's eyes were filled with killing intent. Who are you? Great Western Region, James. James said calmly. Back then, hot-blooded god might had a medicinal powder ground from the legendary 9-colored 9-scented vine, right? Give me this, and I won't bother you again. I know you don't lack money, but I can still buy it for 1 million gold. If you want the powder of the 9-colored 9-scented vine, let's fight first. Violent heavenly thunders and terrestrial magnetism forces extended out from the Black Dragon King's body, displaying his abilities as someone with one tier of perfection. At the next moment, the two silhouettes collided fiercely. Mountains and rivers collapsed, and the heavens fell and the earth cracked. The young man at the side seemed as if he was facing a natural disaster, crying out and retreating. From his perspective, all he could see were shattered mountains, shattered ice and snow, and violent gales. It was not a fight between the two of them. All he could see was endless disasters. However, at the next moment, a cry rang out from the tempest. Where did you get this divine remains equipment from? Humph. What do you think I've been doing for the past 10 years? I've exhausted all my efforts, used up all of hot-blooded God Might's savings, and traveled all over the world in search of materials just to repair this sea demon shield. Even if the Fist Emperor were to come personally, he wouldn't be able to break through this sea demon shield within a short period of time. When the Black Dragon King was young, he had just been an ordinary fisherman. One time, he had accidentally entered the bottom of the sea and found a broken divine remains equipment. From it, he had comprehended a set of nurturing technique, a set of training technique, and a set of killing technique. This was how the Black Dragon King, who had founded hot-blooded Godmight, came into being. After founding hot-blooded Godmight, the Black Dragon King had been trying his best to repair the sea demon shield. However, before he had succeeded, he had been defeated by the Fist Emperor, and all his efforts had gone to waste. Over the past few years, he had exhausted all of his wealth, searched for materials, and put in a lot of effort before finally repairing the shield. His goal was to nurture his disciple into a demigod with 4 tiers of perfection, or even a divine-level expert. He wanted his disciple to wield the sea demon shield and help him defeat the Fist Emperor, thus rebuilding hot-blooded Godmight. Another deafening sound rang out, and the entire world fell silent. However, the young man sensed a series of black shadows flashing past. It was James's silhouette. At the next moment, another gush of power encompassed him. Then light and shadow flashed, and he was grabbed by someone and dashed out at an extremely fast speed. Thinking of leaving? I'll capture you and use you as my proof of allegiance to the first prince. It'll also be a good opportunity for me to silence you and prevent news of me from leaking out. Humph. The first prince wants to subdue all the factions in the world and will definitely not let the Great River Alliance and the Fist Emperor off. I'll join in and make use of the royal family to wipe out the Great River Alliance completely. In the sky, various thoughts flashed rapidly in the Black Dragon King's mind. Both he and his disciple were encompassed by a sea-blue glow, and there was a flashing phantom image of a monster that kept on bellowing behind them. Without any hesitation, the Black Dragon King turned into a series of meteors and chased after James. At the same time, Feng Xingjian had already returned to the Great Western City. The moment he returned to the Great Western City, he looked for Anthony, who had been gathering materials for the mystical prince. "How is it? Have you gathered all the materials?" Anthony said, "Xingjian, I've asked Anderson, Lilia, Zhou Xingwen, as well as Lord Devitt and Lord James to help us gather some precious materials. Right now, with the exception of Lord James, everyone else has returned. However, even if Lord James brings back the items, there's probably still one thing missing." Feng Xingjian frowned and asked, "There's still one thing missing? What is it?" Feng Xingjian needed the 10th level of the mystical prince to help him strive for the realm of brain regeneration. To begin with, the realm of brain regeneration required a strong will that could exist outside of one's body, a will that could still think even after death. Secondly, it required a deep grasp and understanding of the brain. Feng Xingjian was already able to do all of these, albeit with some difficulty. However, brain regeneration was after all a matter of life and death. He still hoped that he would only do it after attaining the 10th level of the mystical prince and having more confidence. After all, even if his lifespan did not decrease, if he were to damage his brain while striving for the realm of brain regeneration and become an idiot for the next 3 years, he might as well just die. Feng Xingjian was very confident that his lifespan would not decrease for the next 3 years. Even if he would not die easily, it was still possible for him to be crippled, trapped, or sealed. Therefore, he would not act recklessly. Anthony replied, "I'm still short of Origin Essence Stones." The Origin Essence Stone was a special mineral in the legends. It looked like a ruby and had the ability to store one's consciousness. Feng Xingjian looked at Anthony and said, "Are you unable to find it, or are you unable to get your hands on it? It's a priceless treasure that can store a person's consciousness and allow them to live on even without a physical body." "There's no need for me to elaborate on how precious it is," Anthony said with a bitter smile. "We won't be able to find it without an owner. If there's an owner, there's one in the city of universal truth, and there should be one in the imperial capital as well. There's also the legendary Serene Shrine. It's said that their greatest treasure is also an extremely huge piece of Origin Essence Stone, condensing the wisdom of their past leaders. As for the others, they'll probably do all they can to hide it after getting their hands on it. The news won't be leaked for decades or even centuries. We'll talk about it later." Just then, Feng Xingjian stopped Anthony from speaking. He stood up and looked toward the sky. "Someone's coming. They're quite fast. A demigod expert?" Chapter 543. In the sky, James and the Black Dragon King were both demigods with one tier of perfection. James had attained perfection in his brain regeneration, while the Black Dragon King had attained perfection in his body toughness. Neither of them was a strength-type opponent, and their speeds were about the same. James unleashed his full power, catching hold of the Earth's magnetic forces. His speed was extremely fast, as if he was not affected by gravity. The Black Dragon King seemed to have really become the legendary Dragon King. Wherever he passed by, there would be strong gales and thunderstorms. He was like a legendary divine dragon, riding on the wind and thunder. As he gave chase, he sent out streams of strong gales, tornadoes, and lightning bolts toward James. Do you think you can escape? Wind dragons roar. The Black Dragon King stretched out his hand, and a tornado swirled around his body. At the next moment, as his fist shot out, it turned into a wind dragon, slashing out toward James at a speed of over 1,000 meters per second. James let out a cold laugh, turned around, and retaliated with a punch. His fist instantly turned into a gush of darkness. Majestic, boundless majesty. Heavy, boundless heaviness. James's punch was like a planet descending from the sky, carrying with it an incomparably heavy and majestic power that pressed down. This was the killing move, the meteor strike, which James had comprehended from the melancholic monarch's martial arts after having observed the Pantheon monument for many years. With a single punch, the sun and moon lost their light, pressing out toward the Black Dragon King's wind dragon's roar. Bang! The air currents dissipated, and so did the heavy fist force. The Black Dragon King said, "You're finally not going to escape? Escape? This is the Great Western region. You're the one who should be escaping." James snorted coldly and said, "I merely wanted to buy the 9-colored, 9-scented vines from you. Why must you chase me all the way from the BI's region to our Great Western region? Who in the world doesn't want a divine remains equipment?" The Black Dragon King said, "Now that I've exposed myself, will you guys not have any thoughts? Even if you don't have any thoughts, if this were to be revealed, wouldn't I become the world's public enemy? Everyone would come to snatch my sea demon shield. But it's fine. After I kill you today, I'll just bring your corpse to the first prince." The Black Dragon King is really ruthless. However, if you want to kill me, that sea demon shield of yours won't be enough. As James spoke, his fist turned into a myriad of overlapping fist shadows, charging toward the Black Dragon King. Imperial Meteor Fist. With this attack, the gravitational forces within a radius of 1,000 meters seemed to be in disorder. Each of James' punches carried violent gravitational waves. Everywhere they passed, the tempest controlled by the Black Dragon King was forcefully crushed. Countless gravitational waves stacked together, fused, and finally turned into an overwhelming fist force that surged toward the Black Dragon King. Streams of gravitational waves stacked up, and at this moment, it was as if the Black Dragon King was at the bottom of the sea. However, his expression was calm. It was because the sea demon shield had turned into a sea blue light that enveloped him. "It's useless. My sea demon shield is a divine remains equipment that a divine level expert used in the past to protect himself. It's made from the endless water vapor of the ocean. Every drop released is enough to flood an entire city. No matter how powerful you are, can you shake an entire ocean?" Amidst his maniacal laughter, the Black Dragon King charged up against James' attack. He did not defend at all and only attacked. Waves of violent powers wreaked havoc between the two of them, but James' attacks were completely ineffective. Very soon, he was at a disadvantage. Just as James was at a disadvantage, a violent gush of sword chi shot out from the west. The white sword chi, which was over 10 kilometers long and 3 to 4 kilometers thick, cut across the sky like a heavenly river, splitting the tempest controlled by the Black Dragon King into two. Then with a rumble, it collided into the Black Dragon King's body. The sea blue light that represented the sea demon shield trembled crazily, sending out ripples as if it would collapse at any moment. The terrifying sword chi brushed past the Black Dragon King's body. A portion of it shot toward the sky, tearing through the clouds, while another portion landed on the ground, slicing off a mountain. It was only after a full minute that the sword chi, which was over 10 kilometers in length, completely dissipated. The entire sky was filled with raging winds and clouds. The tempest disappeared, and the sunlight once again set. Looking at the devastated land with countless sword marks, the Black Dragon King's eyes were filled with lingering fear. If not for the sea demon shield, he would have died from that attack earlier. He lifted his head and saw that Fang Xinjian had unknowingly appeared next to James. The Black Dragon King asked, "Who are you?" Fang Xinjian ignored him and merely looked at James, asking, "Teacher, are you all right?" "I'm fine. I'm old and useless." James smiled bitterly and shook his hand. Fong Xingjian smiled and said, "At least you've lured him here. Leave the rest to me." He then lifted his head to look at the Black Dragon King and said, "I'm Fong Xingjian. You're the Black Dragon King, right? My teacher went to look for you to buy the 9-colored 9-scented vines. Why did you chase after him? You're Fong Xingjian?" Both the Black Dragon King and his disciple revealed astonished expressions. This was especially so for the Black Dragon King. He had thought that Fong Xingjian was the second prince with that powerful attack earlier. "Oomph, you've come at the right time. Then let's die together." The Black Dragon King let out a cold laugh and punched out with both his fists, performing the Tempest Roar. In that instant, strong gales blew and lightning flashed, bringing with it a will that could engulf the entire world. In that instant, the tempest descended once again, and this time, it was even more terrifying. The dark clouds seemed to engulf the entire great western region at an astonishing speed. The torrential rain seemed to want to turn the ground under their feet into a vast ocean. The killing technique that the Black Dragon King had inherited was called the Tsunami Massacre. It was a technique where everything in the world would return to the ocean and would eventually end up in the ocean. Seeing Fong Xingjian's earlier prowess, the Black Dragon King did not dare to hold back and attacked at full power. All life in the world originates from the ocean, and the entire world will eventually be engulfed by the ocean. All life will eventually return to the ocean. Take this world annihilation tide. Endless water vapor condensed together, turning into a pure water bomb that flew out toward Fong Xingjian. It was as if water had replaced air, forming a water bomb. Once it exploded, the water current would sweep out at a speed of several thousand meters, forming water shock waves. Its prowess would be over 100 times greater than that of any other bombs. A concept that all living things came from the ocean and would eventually return to the ocean surrounded it. It was enough to drag anyone into the vastness of the ocean. Moreover, if this attack were to be unleashed at full power, it could drown the area within a range of 100 leagues into a lake. In fact, the ultimate realm of this move was to drown the entire world with a single attack, using one's will to replace the will of the heavens, developing the world and engulfing the mortal world. Faced with this full-powered attack from the Black Dragon King, Fong Xingjian clenched his fist fiercely, and the air seemed to tremble. No, it was not the air that was trembling. Instead, as Fong Xingjian clenched his fist, the space became distorted. It looked as if the air itself was trembling. 1.08 billion particles, 1,440 internal seeds, 9,270 external seeds. Violent physical strength, which had never been seen before in history, seethed in Fong Xingjian's body. To think that just the act of him clenching his fist had distorted the space. At the next moment, Fong Xingjian took a step forward, bent his knees slightly, and shot out his fist like an enraged dragon, smashing fiercely into the world annihilation tide that was gushing toward him. Chapter 544. At this moment, the entire world seemed to have fallen silent. The light rays around Fong Xingjian's palm became distorted under the distortions in space, as if they contained the most terrifying powers in the world. The power of the fist shattered countless physical particles, and the physical particles started to decay. The entire water ball seethed in that instant, and piercing white light burst out from the spot where the fist had struck. It was a result of the kinetic energy being converted into an astonishingly high temperature and high pressure after the collision. The entire water ball exploded at an astonishing speed, breaking through the dark clouds and the atmosphere, gushing out in all directions. Over 1/3 of the water flow was vaporized, and the remaining portion of the water flow was struck out of the atmosphere. There was also a portion of the water flow that spread out across the entire sky of the Great Western region, causing heavy rain to fall for 2 hours. Fong Xingjian flicked his wrist, looked at the dazed Black Dragon King, and asked, "What did you just say?" Swoosh! With a loud sound, the Black Dragon King darted out abruptly. His mind was completely filled up by Fong Xingjian's terrifying punch. With a single punch, even the space had become distorted. With a single punch, The physical particles had exploded, creating flames and strong gales. What kind of power was this? Moreover, when this punch was struck out, Feng Xingjian had been able to control his power exquisitely, causing the Black Dragon King to not receive any damage at all. Even the pouring rain had turned into a heavy downpour, not causing any damage. What kind of control was this? What was even more terrifying was that Feng Xingjian seemed to have done this casually and had not used his full power at all. However, the most terrifying thing was that the one who had punched out was Feng Xingjian. Feng Xingjian's true forte lay in sword arts. Although Feng Xingjian has a great reputation, I thought that he would at most be a Tier 2 demigod, or at most a Tier 3 demigod. However, that punch from earlier is probably something that only a divine-level expert would be able to fend off. What on earth is going on? Over 100 specialty seeds rose up and exploded fiercely, increasing the Black Dragon King's speed to an extreme. He did not dare to continue fighting against Feng Xingjian. However, he had just darted out a distance of 10 kilometers when a sharp, piercing, and needle-like sword intent pierced into his mind. "Stay here." As this voice rang out in his mind, an extremely ferocious power descended from the sky. From the Black Dragon King's perspective, everything within his field of vision was distorted. All the light rays were distorted and bent by this power, and the entire sky seemed to have collapsed. With a furious bellow, another 100 specialty seeds exploded all over the Black Dragon King's body. He flashed with an intense ocean blue glow, and the defensive prowess of the Sea Demon Shield was brought out to an extreme by him. Crashing sounds rang out, and the sound of crashing waves came from the surface of his body. The light shield formed by the Siren Shield looked like an ocean, and countless tsunamis surrounded the Dark Dragon King. At the next moment, a palm descended from the sky, slapping out toward the Black Dragon King. The instant the palm pressed down explosively, all the seawater and blue light shattered and disappeared. The entire air seemed to have been compressed into a material state, freezing the Black Dragon King in midair like an amber block. The palm then slapped onto the Black Dragon King's body, and the Siren Shield turned into an ocean blue shield, blocking in front of Feng Xingjian, glowing brightly. It was unknown how much water vapor from the ocean had condensed in this shield. As Feng Xingjian slapped down with his palm, layers and layers of ripples appeared on its surface. Feng Xingjian felt as if he had slapped his palm onto the ocean. Although the tsunamis were surging, the ocean itself was not affected much. What a good shield! Feng Xingjian let out a long bellow. "If you can take another 3 punches from me without breaking, I'll let you off." The Black Dragon King looked at the Siren Shield, which was trembling crazily with a pale countenance. He could sense that with Feng Xingjian's punch earlier, at least 10% of the water vapor had lost control and returned to the world. This caused the area within a range of 100 leagues to be covered in dark clouds, and the dense water vapor would make one choke just by breathing it. Although the tremendous impact was unable to break the ocean, it was able to send the water vapor out into the air and into the cloud layers. At the next moment, Feng Xingjian put his fist together and raised them up high. The auras of the 1,440 plus 9,270 specialty seeds throughout his body were unleashed explosively, and 1.08 billion physical particles shone brightly, illuminating his body like a man on fire. What's going on? Why are there so many auras of specialty seeds? Sensing the situation on Feng Xingjian's body, the Black Dragon King's gaze was in a daze. At the next moment, a power that was like a nuclear explosion erupted from Feng Xingjian's body. He clenched his fists tightly and smashed them down fiercely. Wherever they passed by, all the air would be compressed, rubbed against each other, and heated up, eventually turning into plasma flames. Feng Xingjian's fists seemed to be burning with 5-colored flames. With his fists as the center, terrifying shock waves, radiation waves, and burning zones extended out crazily. These are just the repercussions of his fists passing by the air. When Feng Xingjian's fists really smashed down, the siren shield let out an ear-piercing screech, and the entire shield sank crazily. Just like a leaking reservoir, water vapor spread out in all directions, turning the entire sky into darkness. The plasma flames formed when Feng Xingjian's fists passed by the air earlier burned within the shield, releasing a series of lightning flashes and thunder roars. How exhilarating! Feng Xingjian laughed out loud. This was the first time he had unleashed his powers without any reservations after attaining perfection in his specialty seeds and achieving great mastery in his physical body. Only a divine remains equipment like the Siren Shield, which specialized in defense, could allow him to unleash his powers without any reservations and display endless prowess. At the next moment, Feng Xingjian exerted force with his legs, causing the space to tremble and distort. He dashed up 10,000 meters into the sky and then raised his fist high up. The muscles throughout his body trembled, and strong gales exploded, causing the atmosphere to howl and bringing about a level 8 typhoon at an altitude of 10,000 meters. Then he dashed down fiercely. Wherever he passed by, the air would explode from his stomps, and thunderous sounds rang out continuously. Just as he was about to strike out a punch and hit the siren shield, a powerful will came gushing toward him. "I surrender! I surrender!" With a rumble, Feng Xingjian's fist brushed past the Black Dragon King's body. His fist struck the air into a plasma state, turning it into a crimson-red particle cannon that smashed toward the ground. A large amount of sand evaporated, and the ground trembled like water. The Black Dragon King looked over with his eyes wide open and saw a pitch-black, bottomless hole that was several hundred meters wide appearing in the ground. He gulped and said, "I'm willing to offer up the 9-colored 9-scented vines with both hands. I only beg Lord Feng Xingjian to spare my life." "MMM," Feng Xingjian said calmly. When the Black Dragon King saw the unsatisfied expression in Feng Xingjian's eyes, he sighed inwardly. What on earth is this Feng Xingjian's background? With just his terrifying physical body, he can even go up against divine-level experts. To think that I thought that after the Siren Shield was repaired, no one below the divine level would be able to deal with me. Let's go. We'll talk when we get back. After saying this, the light all over Feng Xingjian's body slowly extinguished, and the long white hair on his head that was standing up also gradually returned to its original state. The aura from his body was slowly withdrawn. Seeing this scene, the Black Dragon King let out a long sigh and relaxed. Chapter 545. Amazing. In Hildebrand's mind, the top scholar of the Jade Dynasty from 5,000 years ago, Grand Duke Alba, exclaimed, "This Feng Xingjian is really amazing. It's not just powerful, it's super powerful." The little girl who claimed that if she had been born 500 years later, she would have been able to beat up the king of the ocean, king of the sky, and king of the earth. She sighed and said, to be able to cultivate such a physical body without reaching the divine level. If he were to reach the divine level one day, how amazing would that be? In Hildebrand's mind, many consciousnesses asked, Grand Duke Alba, Saint Luoluo, is he really that amazing? It turned out that the little girl's name was Luoluo. She was the saintess of the holy sea of truth from 3,000 years ago. As for Hildebrand, under the control of many consciousnesses, he had arrived at a location that was over 100 kilometers away from Feng Xingjian and the Black Dragon King. It turned out that they had been searching for other reincarnators in the wilderness, but the commotion caused by the battle between Feng Xingjian and the Dark Dragon King was too great, attracting their attention. They chased after them and happened to see the scene of Feng Xingjian punching out. Feng Xingjian and the Dark Dragon King had already left quickly while the many consciousnesses were quarreling. Just after they left, another wave of experts ran over, checked the situation, and then left. The entire exchange between Feng Xingjian and the Black Dragon King was simply too fast. By the time the other experts noticed the abnormality and rushed over, it was already too late. Hildebrand was the only one who was able to see the situation as he was close by. However, from the beginning to the end, true Lord Qingshan, who was dressed in a white coat, looked in the direction in which Fang Xingjian had disappeared in a daze, not saying a single word. At the sight of this scene, Grand Duke Alba and Saint Luluo exchanged a glance and asked, "True Lord Qingshan, could it be that you've noticed something?" True Lord Qingshan abruptly raised his head, and the scenes of Fang Xingjian's hair standing on end and the light flames all over his body flashed in his mind. True Lord Qingshan shouted, "Scion, Super Scion is actually real." His eyes were filled with excitement, as if his eyes were glowing, but the many consciousnesses around him didn't understand what he was saying. Grand Duke Alba asked, "What is a Super Scion?" "He is the strongest warrior in this universe." When True Lord Qingshan spoke again, his expression had become unfathomable. To think that this Fang Xingjian is actually a Super Scion. It's no wonder that he's so amazing. But he doesn't look like a righteous Z warrior. Instead, he looks more like Broly. The others were still puzzled. They looked at True Lord Qingshan and mumbled to himself. To think that it's a Super Scion. So it's a Super Scion. In that case, I already know what the 7th onslaught will be. Really? Luo asked. I'm afraid all of this is due to this Fang Xingjian. True Monarch Qingshan said, "According to the records in Jump, Scions wander in the universe and are used to capturing planets and selling them. They often send children to the planet in advance, and when the children grow up, they will occupy the entire planet." "You mean, not bad." True Lord Qingshan said, "In the 7th onslaught, we'll probably have to deal with the Scions and stop this Fang Xingjian from occupying the entire planet." "Then what should we do?" Grand Duke Alba asked. "Is there even a need to ask?" True Lord Qingshan said seriously, "Of course we'll use the gravity chambers to train. We'll have to gather more reincarnators and build gravity chambers. We'll have to cultivate to a level that surpasses that of a Super Scion and stop them from going to sleep." Elsewhere, Fang Xingjian had already brought the Black Dragon King back to the sacred land of the Great Western Region Regional Academy. When James and the others saw the Black Dragon King following them back dejectedly, their eyes revealed puzzled expressions. However, Fang Xingjian did not explain this. Instead, he said, "The 7th onslaught is getting closer and closer, and the actions of the other princes and divine-level experts will probably become increasingly greater. Various experts will appear, and the world will probably become increasingly chaotic in the future. Although I'm very strong, I won't be able to protect everyone at all times. It's just like this time around. If the Black Dragon King had not chased us all the way to the Great Western Region, things would probably have become very troublesome. Therefore, I wish to leave a stream of sword intent on each of you. This way, if you're in danger, I'll be able to receive the news immediately and rush over to provide support. What do you guys think?" Anthony was the first to laugh and say, "Of course this is a good thing. With such a powerful backing like you, Xingjian, I wouldn't even be able to beg you to leave a stream of sword intent for me." A hint of hesitation flashed in Governor Devitt's eyes. It was a little awkward for him to let an expert leave a stream of martial will in his consciousness. Moreover, Fang Xingjian had only been a student to begin with, but now he possessed powers that surpassed his own. This made Devitt feel awkward. James laughed and was the first to step forward, saying, "Then come, Xingjian. There's no end to martial arts, and those who have reached the pinnacle are the teachers. Although you're younger than us, you're already ahead of us. The news of you defeating the 5th Prince 8 days ago will spread out very quickly. By then, you'll probably be ranked first amongst all those below the divine level. Or rather, you'll be ranked first amongst all those below the divine level. After all, even the 1st Prince has evaluated you as the number 1 in sword arts below the divine level." Fang Xingjian smiled at this. As the saying went, number 1 amongst those below the divine level, number 1 in sword arts. The 1st Prince did not have good intentions when he said this. After all, there was no number 1 in literature and no number 2 in martial arts. The title of number 1 in sword arts carried a bloody weight. It was unknown how many people would view Fang Xingjian as their opponent just because of this evaluation. The first prince's evaluation of him could be said to be filled with malicious intentions. He had purposely drawn enemies for Fang Xingjian. Fang Xingjian said, "Then I won't stand on ceremony. Teacher, please don't resist." "Come on," James said calmly. Fang Xingjian pressed down on James's head with a finger. An extremely fine, sharp, and pure sword intent pierced out. It was as if a bolt of lightning had darted past James's mind. Seeing that even James, who was the oldest among them, was in this state, Devitt and the others did not feel as awkward. They were all channeled their sword intents into them by Fang Xingjian. With that, if anything were to happen to the experts on Fang Xingjian's side, Fang Xingjian will be able to sense it at any time. "All right, I'll accompany the Black Dragon King to get the 9-colored 9 centivines." James laughed, patted the Black Dragon King on the shoulder, and said, "Let's go." Simultaneously, in the desert of the Eastern Sand region, the 5th prince carried the weakened 4-eyed, heavenly winged beast and walked toward the east. Seeing that the sandstorm was getting stronger and stronger, he could not help but ask, "How much longer do we have to walk for? You said that I'll be able to come across a fortuitous encounter guided by an expert if I keep walking toward the west of the desert. Why hasn't it appeared yet?" A female voice rang out in his mind. "These are the instructions of the gods. Don't doubt them and just follow them." The 5th prince walked for another 10 over kilometers with a grim countenance. Suddenly, the sandstorm came to a stop. No, it was not that the sandstorm had stopped. It was because when he turned back to look, there was still sandstorm 1 meter behind him. He had barged into a domain without any sand. The 5th prince lifted his head and saw a man sitting cross-legged. The man was dressed in white robes, and there were 4 big words written on the back of the white robes. "Number 1 in the world." Chapter 546. The 4 words, which were written with strong strokes and silver hooks, exuded a domineering aura at first glance. Each stroke seemed to contain a feeling of being invincible and being as lonely as snow. However, who was the 5th prince? He had the world's best fist arts talent and had grown up in the royal family since young. How could he be frightened by these 4 words? Looking at the 4 words behind the other party's back, the 5th prince let out a cold snort. "Best in the world? What arrogant words. You can't be saying that the expert who gave me guidance is this guy, right? The previous pontiff of the Holy See of Truth dominated the world for 100 years and was invincible. He had never tasted defeat, nor did he dare to claim to be the best in the world. The previous pontiff of the Holy See of Truth?" Hearing that, the man in white said calmly, "Although he's amazing, without the 9 levels of the ether particles, he's still only at tier 1 of the divine level. How could he dare to claim to be the best in the world?" The 5th prince said calmly, "In that case, you've already surpassed tier 1 of the divine level and cleared the 9-tiered heavens." Hearing that, the man in white smiled and shook his head. "How can my abilities be something that you can imagine? The path of the divine level is but a path that mortals take. I've long given up on it. So you're just a lunatic who spouts gibberish." The 5th prince laughed out loud and said, "But you've insulted my path of cultivation. Although you're a lunatic, I can't let you off." With that, the 5th prince carefully placed the 4-eyed, heavenly winged beast on the ground, stroked its head, and said, "Have a good rest. I'll settle this in a while." He then clenched his fists, and the vital energy and blood throughout his body seethed. It was as if there were gusts of wind drifting around his body. Seeing the 5th prince's actions, Tian Yi shook his head and sighed. "You're still pursuing brute force. This is the most inferior method in cultivation. Just based on this, you'll never be able to reach my realm. Long-winded and spouting gibberish. Go and die." With that, the 5th prince punched out with a bang. Layers of fist force stacked up like layers of ocean waves fusing together. When the power arrived before Tian Yi, it had already turned into a white dragon-shaped chi force that engulfed Tian Yi. With a loud explosion, thousands of miles of yellow sand swirled up, turning into a sandstorm that blew towards the east. However, at the next moment, the 5th prince exclaimed in surprise. He saw that his chi force had not caused any damage at all. No, Rather than saying that it didn't cause any damage, it would be more accurate to say that it directly passed through. I have long since abandoned my physical body. Tiani said, "One day, when I woke up, I suddenly realized that my martial will was too powerful, causing everyone within a range of 1,000 meters to faint. Then I realized that my body was a drag on my spirit. He would be tired, he would be injured, and he would have all sorts of desires to corrode my will. Therefore, I decided to give up my physical body." As he spoke, his body flashed slightly, and he appeared behind the fifth prince, giving him a fright. "So fast, I can't see him at all," Tian-E continued. "In the beginning, without the nourishment of a physical body, I felt that it was extremely difficult. It was as if my consciousness would collapse at any moment. So I started cultivating. Cultivate? How are you going to cultivate without a body?" Tian-E said calmly, "The best way to cultivate is to close your eyes and meditate. Everything will be carried out in your consciousness. I gradually got used to existing purely through my will. With this, I'm no longer affected by any material attacks. Moreover, my speed." Tian-E flashed once again and appeared at his original position. Throughout the entire process, the fifth prince was not even able to tell if Tian-E had moved, let alone being able to see him clearly. "As an existence purely through my will, my speed is already as fast as light. I'm no longer restricted by material attacks." The fifth prince looked at this scene in astonishment. It could be said that throughout history, he had never heard of anyone who could continue existing purely through their will after losing their physical body. They could even cultivate and become stronger. At the next moment, Tian-E once again appeared next to the fifth prince and patted the fifth prince's shoulder. To think that there was a real feeling of touch. This meant that although Tian-E was existing purely through his will, he was already able to use his will to affect the material world. Actually, it was easy to understand. After a person's physical body died, they would exist purely through their will. This meant that they would be tempering their martial will at all times. It could be said that every moment was a moment of life and death, incessantly stimulating one's potential. How fast would one's martial will improve in such a way? However, in the entire world, Tian-E was probably the only one who could achieve this by relying on the obsession of the stalwart Eidolon conviction. Sensing that Tian-E had patted him, the fifth prince subconsciously retaliated with a punch. Violent power drifted about, unable to affect Tian-Yi's will. However, this time around, the fifth prince condensed his own martial fist intent. A demonic will that wanted to engulf the entire world, wanting to possess everything, attacked Tian-E. However, it was scattered by Tian-E with a light pat, as if he was slapping a lump of black smoke. That's right. His martial will is already condensed into a physical body, so it's naturally extremely powerful. It's impossible for my will to be a match for his. In that instant, the fifth prince's countenance turned grim. Tian-E could move at light speed, rendering martial arts attacks ineffective, and his powerful will was comparable to that of divine-level experts. Even if such a person could not be said to be the world's number one, he would still be a top-notch expert in the world. Moreover, the fifth prince had just offended such a person. However, looking at the fifth prince's grim countenance, Tian-E shook his head and said, "There's no need to worry. I don't like to take lives. It's just that your talent is really not bad. I really want to give you some guidance." "What?" The fifth prince looked at Tian-E in astonishment. "I'm too powerful. I'm so powerful that I no longer have any opponents." Tian-E sighed, appearing as lonely as snow. "The only one who could defeat me is myself. Therefore, in order to find some opponents, I want to give some guidance to a few geniuses and raise your abilities. I'll see if there's a chance for you to challenge me." The fifth prince's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately half knelt down and said, "Thank you, master, for your guidance." He then lowered his head and said, "But you won't want me to give up on my physical body, right?" He wanted to possess all the beauties, wealth, and authority in the world. How could he be willing to give up on his physical body? Tiani smiled and said calmly, I'm only in charge of giving you guidance. How far you can reach will depend on your own choice." With that, he entered the fifth prince's consciousness with a flash. You really have good talent. You're able to accept my martial arts." Then countless rays of light burst out from the fifth prince's eyes. "Calm down and focus. Sense my martial arts well, and use it to temper your will." At the next moment, He controlled the fifth prince's hands and opened them toward the four-eyed heavenly winged beast. "You're a pretty good wild beast. You also have divine level talent. I can level you up a little before killing you. I can turn you into a divine remains armor." Chapter 547. Fang Xingjian sat cross-legged on the ground, looking at the thunder-penetrating long spear in his hand. Under his control, this thunder-penetrating long spear turned into a white glow, occasionally lengthening and shrinking with many changes. Interesting to think that this thunder-penetrating long spear can turn one's consciousness into a power that only it has. This thunder-penetrating long spear was a divine remains equipment that Fang Xingjian had snatched from the fifth prince. It was the personal weapon of the divine Sun Emperor, the founder of the Sun Dynasty, which was the first dynasty to unify Miracle World. Right now, Fang Xingjian was playing with this divine remains equipment. As he played with it, he said, "This divine remains equipment is level 30. Then it seems that all divine remains equipment have different levels." "That's only natural," Fang Qian said. "Divine remains equipment have a portion of a divine level expert's power. A level 30 divine remains equipment would usually have the ability of a tier 1 divine level expert, turning one's will into a material form of power. However, the effects are different. For example, the thunder-penetrating long spear is a light spear that can turn into a material form and generate electricity and flames. That sea demon shield should be able to absorb water vapor for defense. Does the level of the divine remains equipment determine the level of the divine level expert's abilities?" Fang Xingjian nodded and said, "Then it seems that this personal weapon of the divine Sun Emperor isn't that powerful." "A personal weapon isn't powerful," Tyrant said. "But the divine Sun Emperor was the first person to rule over the world. When he was alive, both the Mage Association and the Holy Sea of Truth weren't willing to go to war with him. How powerful do you think he is? Moreover, he led humanity to fend off the second onslaught. This thunder-penetrating long spear is just one of the 49 thunder-penetrating long spears he has. Based on the association's records, he brought these long spears with him back then. When he saw an enemy, he would casually toss them out, and the 49 long spears would take turns to shoot out. Anyone would be stabbed to death. There's a total of 49 thunder-penetrating long spears." Fang Xingjian was taken aback. Then how many divine level experts would he have to kill? How many divine level experts do you think the person who unifies the world has to kill?" Tyrant smiled coldly and said, "The 49 thunder-permeating spears are merely made from the corpses of Tier 1 divine level experts. It said that he has many more powerful divine remains equipment forged from the corpses of divine level experts at the 5th, 6th, or even 7th tier." Fang Qian asked curiously, "What kind of divine remains equipment is it? Did no one pass it down?" "The Great Sun, 9 Dragons, Divine Sword, and the Sun Emperor Crimson Flame Armor." It was this sword and armor that made the divine Sun Emperor almost invincible back then. Tyrant then let out a sigh. "It's a pity that everyone will die one day." This great emperor, who had astonished both ancient and modern times, wasn't surprised. Not long after his death, the Sun Dynasty fell apart, and that sword and armor disappeared without a trace. Some people say that they were taken away by the divine Sun Emperor's son, while others say that they were hidden by the prince back then. There are also some who say that they were buried together with the divine Sun Emperor in his tomb chamber. These secrets were clearly the records of the Mage Association. In this world, probably only the Mage Association and the Holy Sea of Truth, who had existed for several thousand or 10,000 years, would have such a deep understanding of the world's history. "All right, let's not talk about things that happened many years ago," Fang Xingjian said. The reason I called you guys here today is to ask for your opinions. Although Feng Qian had not appeared, she had been aware of what Feng Xingjian had been doing recently. She asked, "You want origin essence stones? The holy sea of truth's influence is too strong, and it's not realistic for you to head to the city of universal truth to get them. The royal family has 3 divine-level experts, the first prince, the king, and the Hell Path sect master, the Abyss Lord. It's unlikely that you'll be able to get them. As for the Serene Shrine, you're immune to black magic, so you can use your brain." With just a few words, Feng Qian had explained Feng Xingjian's plans clearly, displaying a clear grasp of the situation. Feng Xingjian nodded, looked at Tyrant, and said, "That's right. Out of the 3, I can only choose the Serene Shrine. Therefore, I want to know where on earth they've kept their origin essence stones. What other experts are there in the Serene Shrine?" Looking at Feng Xingjian's gaze, which seemed to have taken form, Tyrant let out a sigh and said, "Although I've left the Serene Shrine, I can still kill 1 or 2 of them. But now you want me to help you get the origin essence stones. It's not to help me get them, but to tell me some information," Feng Xingjian said. "When the time comes, I'll go get them myself. You can just stay in the great western city and help me hold the fort." Tyrant said hesitantly, "You don't understand the significance of the origin essence stones. It's not easy for mages to attain the divine level. Therefore, many of the gray-robed faction's leaders, experts, and elders would leave their consciousnesses in the origin essence stones after their deaths. To the people of the Serene Shrine, the origin essence stones are their final resting place after death. You should understand how important these things are to the Serene Shrine. Once you go and snatch them, it'll really be a fight to the death. I can't even imagine what kind of crazy things they'll do. You should be very clear about the prowess of the gray-robed black magic." When Tyrant said the last sentence, he looked toward Feng Qian. Feng Qian frowned and said, "What Tyrant said is also a problem. If you go and snatch the origin essence stones, it'll be equivalent to digging up other people's ancestral graves. It might even be more serious than that. Even if the gray-robed mages can't do anything to you, once they use black magic without any reservations and summon all sorts of monsters from other worlds that they can't control, the world will really be thrown into chaos. It's also because of this consideration that the Empire hasn't annihilated the gray-robed mages yet. They have the means to perish together with you." Feng Xingjian said, "I don't need the entire origin essence stone. The cultivation of the 10th level of the mystical prince only requires 1 gram of the origin essence stone. I could just chop off a corner from it. This won't affect the usage of the origin essence stone, right?" Tyrant gave it some thought and said, "This won't affect it. It won't force the people from the Serene Shrine to fight to the death. However, they'll really be fighting to the death with you. Their enmity toward you will probably be greater than toward the Krieg royal family." Feng Xingjian said, "There's no other way. But as long as I have the 10th level of the mystical prince, I'll have more confidence in striving for brain regeneration. Once I attain 4 tiers of perfection, it'll be enough for me to deal with the changes in the situation." Tyrant let out a sigh and said, "Other than myself and the guy who played with clones, the Serene Shrine has 1 more genius. He's called the Ghost King." Therefore, Tyrant continued to talk about the information regarding the Serene Shrine. Feng Xingjian finally understood what kind of power this organization created by the gray-robed mages possessed. Tyrant said, "Therefore, the Serene Shrine has at least 1 divine-level mage. However, this was when I was around. Now that so many months have passed since the world's metamorphosis, I don't even know what level their strongest expert has reached." Chapter 548. Due to the fact that the borders of the BI's region were close to the Steel Lion Kingdom in the northern plains, the borders of the BI's region were always in a state of chaos, just like the Eastern Sand region. On the grassland, a group of carriages was moving in an unknown direction. Groups of ragged slaves with their hands tied followed behind the carriages. In the sky, Feng Xingjian stood in the spatial rift and looked at the team below him. There are 2 magi in total. It seems like this is the Gray Robes slave-catching team. Based on what Tyrant had said, the Serene Shrine's headquarters was located on the Great Plains between the Bi's continent and the Steel Lion Kingdom. Taking advantage of the fact that the two countries were constantly at war and in a state of chaos, they captured various commoners, soldiers, and those who had been defeated in war. While they sold them as slaves, they also conducted various human experiments. The Serene Shrine's Origin Essence Stone is in their headquarters, and it's under the care of the Serene Shrine's current leader, the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord. The Origin Essence Stone contained the wills of the Serene Shrine's past experts, as well as countless experiences and secret arts. It could be said that the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord had been tempering his will and increasing his cultivation through the Origin Essence Stone daily. Therefore, in order to snatch the Origin Essence Stone, Feng Xingjian had to sneak in secretly. Otherwise, if the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord were to sense it, he would hide the Origin Essence Stone. It would be hard to find it. However, the entire headquarters of the Serene Shrine is encompassed by the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord senses. A divine-level expert's senses are like Li Shuanghua's. Even if I were to hide in spatial gaps, I would be able to sense it. Therefore, I'll need to use some other methods to enter. While Feng Xingjian was following the slave-catching team, on a hillside 300 meters away, a white-clothed girl was looking at the slave-catching team from afar. The girl had blonde hair and blue eyes. Her big eyes were shining like gems, and there was sorrow between her brows. Looking at the slave hunters in the distance, she sighed and said, "I didn't expect there to be such a dark side in the Empire. These human traffickers plunder on the border every day, causing thousands of miles of land to be barren. The people have no way to make a living, and they even provoke disputes between the two countries. Sally, these people really deserve to die. Let's go." This young lady with blonde hair and blue eyes was Arbitrator Sally, who had gone to the Great Western region to handle the matter regarding the rebirth sword technique. Back then, she had said that she was going to investigate the truth behind the rebirth sword technique. However, it was unknown why she had come here. Standing on either side of Sally were two handsome young men. Their eyes were filled with adoration as they looked at Sally. The one who spoke had blue hair and was over 2 meters tall. His body was sturdy and powerful. Hearing his words, Sally shook her head. "Let's follow them and see where their nest is." Inside the spatial rift, Feng Xingjian had long since arrived beside the three of them. Hearing their words, he frowned inwardly. 3 fellows with a death wish. Thinking of this, he wanted to knock the 3 of them down, but he frowned slightly and stopped. This was because he could clearly see a gray-robed magus rising from the carriages in the distance, flying towards Sally and the other 2. "Did you find them?" Feng Xingjian gave it some thought. "I'll just let the 3 of them be captured. At the very most, I'll just save them when I succeed." Just as Feng Xingjian was planning to do this, he saw mysterious incantations lighting up in the gray-robed mage's mouth. At the next moment, accompanied by surging gray light, many black tunnels opened up in midair. Over 10 evil demons, who had 2 legs on their heads and were covered in blazing flames, walked out. The gray-robed magus let out a cold snort and said, "The 3 of you are the ones who have been intercepting the slave-capturing team on the plains recently, right?" "Magus." Sally's eyes emitted endless killing intent. "Gray-robed magus? You guys are from the Serene Shrine?" "The Serene Shrine is capturing slaves on the plains?" The gray-robed magus smiled coldly and said, "Go think about it in hell. Kill them all." At the next moment, over 10 demons from an unknown world soared into the sky. The black wings on their backs exuded streams of mysterious runes, and they charged out towards Sally and the other 2 with ferocious powers. From Feng Xingjian's perspective, each of these demons had a battle prowess of at least level 20. Sally had already reached level 28, and the aura of over 600 specialty seeds rose up from her body. The 2 people next to her were also at level 28. The 3 of them surrounded each other, each holding a long sword. They advanced and retreated in an orderly manner, and very soon, they wiped out the demons one by one. The light sword in Sally's hand swept out, slashing through the plains that were 100 meters in front of her. 5 demons were instantly slashed into two. However, at the next moment, each of the demons grew back their lost halves, and the number of demons instantly increased from 5 to 10. What? Sally let out an astonished cry, and the light sword in her hand turned into streams of light shock waves. However, no matter what kind of injuries the demons received, they would recover immediately. If they were slashed into two halves, they would become two demons. If they were slashed into 10 segments, they would become 10 demons. If they were smashed into pieces, they would become several tens demons. In the blink of an eye, several hundred demons surrounded the three of them. At this moment, no one, including Sally, dared to make a move. It was because each time they killed a demon, there would only be more of them. Ha ha ha! The gray-robed mage laughed and said, "To dare spoil the plans of our Terrene shrine, you're really courting death." Not long later, a monster army of over 1,000 demons had completely suppressed Sally and the other two, tying them up one by one. Looking at the tied-up Sally, the gray-robed mage grinned and said, "She's quite pretty." With that, he reached out to touch Sally. The two young men at the side struggled violently. "Stop it. If you dare to touch her, we'll definitely kill you." The gray-robed mage laughed out loud and said, "You want to kill me? Then I'll touch her right before your eyes, scum." Feng Xingjian, who was in the spatial gaps, looked at this scene and sighed. If I have to put up with things like this and let my soul suffer, then what's the point of me cultivating sword arts? Sensing a ball of fury rising in his heart, Feng Xingjian did not hesitate in the slightest. He activated the infiltrating void and instantly exploded within the gray-robed mage's body, slashing him into dust. At the same time that the gray-robed mage was killed, an overwhelming sword intent swept through the consciousness of Sally and the other two, causing them to be stunned for a moment. By the time they reacted, Feng Xingjian had already turned into the gray-robed mage and appeared before the three of them. The 1,000 demons that had been summoned let out furious bellows, as if they had sensed the death of their summoner and were about to fly off in all directions. However, Feng Xingjian threw a nonchalant glance toward the 1,000 demons. The demons that Sally found extremely difficult to deal with were, in Feng Xingjian's eyes, very clear. They were just a type of plasticine monster that had disguised itself as a demon. All of the 1,000 demons were actually just a plasticine monster. Sally had only sliced them up and did not turn them into two, or from 2 to 4. It was just a bluff. With this glance from Feng Xingjian, the 1,000 demons were wiped out by the infiltrating void sword, all of them turning into dust. It seemed as if he had withdrawn the summoning. In the distance, another gray-robed mage shouted, "Richard, how is it? Are you not done yet?" Looking at the grim expressions on the faces of the three of them, Feng Xingjian said calmly, "It's done. Get the guards to bring them away." At the next moment, a gush of sword intent was channeled into the bodies of the three of them, temporarily suppressing their control over their physical bodies. It was as if their cultivation had been temporarily crippled. Chapter 549. Sally and the other two looked at Feng Xingjian hatefully. Feng Xingjian was naturally unmoved. However, after they returned to the group, the eyes of the other bald, gray-robed mage, who had tattoos all over his face, gleamed when he saw Sally. He chuckled and said, "This is really a pretty girl. Richard, I want to play with her." Feng Xingjian frowned and said, "She's mine." The eyes of the bald, tattooed man narrowed, as if he had not expected that Richard, whom he usually bullied, would suddenly be so strong-willed. He smiled and patted Feng Xingjian's shoulder, revealing his white teeth. Each of his teeth was like the sharp teeth of a tiger, exuding a cold gleam. "Richard, I said that I want to play with her," the bald, tattooed man said. The bald, tattooed man said word by word, "If you say no, I'll twist your head off and put it into your stomach. Let's see how long it takes for you to recover." With that, he did not seem to be worried that the other party would resist. He let out a cold snort and turned to walk towards Sally and the others. The guards in the surroundings looked on coldly, as if they did not dare to get involved in the fight between the two mages. Fang Xingjian shook his head. The Serene Shrine's way of doing things was cruel and vicious, and the internal fights between the mages were even more bloody and cold-blooded than he had imagined. It seemed that even if he were to impersonate one of the mages, the situation would not be easy. At the next moment, Fang Xingjian's legs shot out like illusions and dashed behind the bald, tattooed mage. Fang Xingjian slammed his palm onto the other party's head, and, at the same time, he sent out his sword intent. The bald, tattooed mage fainted. Fang Xingjian said coldly, "Carry him to the car." He then looked at the guards and the surroundings. Looking at Sally's greedy gaze that was like that of a hungry wolf, he sighed and said, "Send this woman to my car." Hearing his words, the two young men immediately started struggling crazily. Be *starred. Let go of Madam Sally. You demon. Do you know that you've offended someone you can't afford to offend? Let go of her quickly. Otherwise, the entire Serene Shrine will be in trouble. Sally's face paled slightly. The other two youths cursed as they were dragged away. However, from what they were saying, it seemed that Sally had some sort of extraordinary identity. She was beautiful, mysterious, and had a profound background. Fang Xingjian's body flashed once again, and he slapped each of them, causing the two young men to see stars and be unable to speak. Then, Fang Xingjian said calmly, "Stuff their mouths with cloth. If they still scream, stuff their mouths full of feces. I want to see how they could talk then." Hearing Fang Xingjian's words, as expected, the two young men stopped howling. However, their gazes toward Fang Xingjian were filled with even more hatred. They shouted through telepathy, "Evil demon, Miss Sally's identity is no small matter. If you capture her like this, you'll be bringing great trouble to the Serene Shrine." That's right. Miss Sally isn't someone you can lay a finger on. Let her go quickly. Otherwise, even the Serene Shrine and your leader, the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord, won't be able to protect you. Sally's identity seemed to be very important to them. However, from their expressions, it seemed that they had some reservations towards the Serene Shrine and were unwilling to say it. Fang Xingjian could not be bothered with them. He sent out a stream of sword intent, causing the two of them to foam at the mouth and faint. Fang Xingjian then grabbed Sally and went to the carriage. The carriage was covered with a layer of blanket made from the fur of ferocious beasts. It was extremely soft and warm, and there was even a stick of incense lit on the table in the carriage. It prevented one from smelling the stench of the various animals on the plains. After the incense entered one's body, one would even feel lightheaded and comfortable. The moment Fang Xingjian entered the carriage, he lay down, closed his eyes, and continued his cultivation. Out of the 5 great perfections, only the organs of ether still needed to be cultivated. The organs of ether required all the organs in the 5 viscera and 6 bowels to be able to digest and absorb ether. Up till now, Fang Xingjian had only refined his lungs. However, there was no way for him to speed up the process and could only modify it step by step. Therefore, Fang Xingjian did not let go of any bit of time. He cultivated almost all the time he was walking, sitting, or lying down. Sally sat at the side. She was dressed in a long white robe, which made her look even prettier. This was especially so for the pair of ample softness on her chest, which was hard to conceal even under the long robe. Putting aside other aspects, Sally really had the looks of a fairy. It was no wonder that the 2 mages and the slave traders in the surroundings were in such a hurry to skin her alive. It could be said that for a woman like her to end up in the hands of the slave hunters, it was like a lamb entering a tiger's den. Sally sat for a while and suddenly realized that Fang Xingjian did not seem to be doing anything. After a while, she finally could not hold it in any longer and asked, "You guys are from the Serene Shrine, right? You guys want to capture those people and bring them back for human experiments, right? Torturing them for a very long time and sacrificing them to your god in their most painful and despairing moments. Don't you guys feel any guilt at all? You've actually been protecting me all this while, right? I believe that you're a good person at heart. If you're willing to forsake the darkness and join the light, Fong Xingjian stomped down on Sally's face, kicking her out of the carriage. She rolled down the front door and landed on the ground, covered in dirt. "If you continue with your nonsense, I'll get every man here to take turns on you." Hearing Fong Xingjian's words, the surrounding guards all laughed, and their gazes towards Sally were filled with lust. Right now, Sally's cultivation had been suppressed, and she was being looked at by so many ferocious gazes. For the first time, she felt a sense of helplessness, and her countenance turned pale. After returning to the carriage, Sally didn't say a single word. Fong Xingjian was also happy to have some peace and quiet. It would allow him to focus on his cultivation. The carriage traveled for another day and night, passing by 4 outposts. The number of slaves in the carriage also exceeded 1,000. A guard stuck his head into the carriage and glared fiercely at Sally for a few seconds before saying, "Sir, we've collected all the slaves this time. Do you want to go back? Let's go." Fong Xingjian did not know their process, so he just said vaguely. However, this time around, after traveling for only an hour, Fong Xingjian opened his eyes abruptly and punched above his head. In an instant, the entire carriage was shattered, and the guards in the surroundings retreated while crying out in shock. A 7-colored arrowhead descended from the sky and shone with spiritual light was caught by Fong Xingjian in his hand. It kept trembling and struggling. Fong Xingjian felt that the explosive power contained within it was enough to blast everything within a 10-meter radius into pieces. A few hundred meters away, a young man rode on a scarlet fire mystic thunder horse and carried a 7-colored longbow on his back. He looked like a god that had descended to the mortal world. Just as Fong Xingjian grabbed onto the arrowhead, the young man once again drew his bow and nocked an arrow. He pointed at Fong Xingjian and said, "Demon, why aren't you releasing him?" Sally said in surprise, "General Allen?" The 2 young men whose mouths had been gagged also looked in the direction of the 7-colored young man. Their gazes were filled with excitement and surprise. Rainbow Arrow Allen was a hero of the Empire's border forces and one of the 12 heavenly knights under Prince Philip. Prince Philip was the Emperor's uncle and one of the 10 divine-level experts in the Empire. He had guarded the Empire's northern borders for 20 years and could be said to be a legendary hero. This Rainbow Arrow Allen was an expert among the 12 heavenly knights, a level 29 senior confer knight. He was also one of Sally's admirers. Ever since he found out that Sally had gone missing, he had chased after her through the night and finally caught up to the carriage. Sally said, "Surrender." General Allen's rainbow arrow has endless prowess. It can contain 7 different attributes in a single arrow. If it wasn't for the fact that he was worried about hurting me, you would have been killed by him long ago. It was clear that she was very confident in Allen. Allen's appearance also caused a commotion in the carriage. It was clear that everyone had heard of his reputation. The bald, tattooed man, who had been knocked unconscious by Fong Xingjian, had regained consciousness for a period of time. When he saw Allen's appearance, his countenance changed drastically. "This guy is very powerful. Richard, look at what you've done. I'll definitely report this to you when I get back." With a bang, he was once again knocked unconscious by Fong Xingjian with a slap. Fong Xingjian looked at the rainbow arrow in his hand and said calmly, "If it wasn't for the sake of testing out the quality of this walk-on, he wouldn't even have the chance to make a move." At the next moment, Fong Xingjian's palm suddenly disappeared. It was because his speed had reached a certain limit and left the retina's sight. As his arm disappeared, the rainbow arrow in Fong Xingjian's hand pierced through General Allen's chest like a bolt of lightning. It pierced through General Allen's lungs, heart, pancreas, stomach, and 2 kidneys. General Allen fell to the ground, his body stiff and unable to move. He could only slowly regenerate his body. Fong Xingjian clapped his hands and said, "Capture and tie him up. If he makes any more noise, feed him feces. Give me another carriage." Chapter 550. Seeing how General Allen, whom she had viewed as her savior, had been dealt with so easily, Sally's countenance sank, and great waves of astonishment surged in her heart. To think that this demon was able to deal with General Allen so easily. What level has his abilities reached? 1 tier of demigod, 2 tiers of demigod, or what? At the thought of how she was about to be brought back to the Terrene Shrine's base by such a great demon, a hint of despair flashed in her eyes. The two young men once again struggled with all their might, and their gazes toward Fang Xingjian were filled with anxiety. Streams of information currents were sent into Fang Xingjian's brain. Demon, Miss Sally's status is no small matter. Do you think that you'll be able to escape unscathed if you capture her like this? We'll stay behind. Let go of Miss Sally. Otherwise, a great calamity will descend. Do you still not understand? You'll regret this. A gush of sword intent pierced through their consciousness, piercing their brains with a piercing pain. However, they did not dare to say another word. However, their gazes when looking at Fang Xingjian were filled with fury, as if they had already told him that it was him who did not know how to cherish the opportunity. 2 hours later, the group entered a valley. Fang Xingjian could sense that there were many strange life forms hidden in the forest in the valley. They were clearly the life forms from other worlds that the Terrene Shrine had summoned from the various worlds beyond the heavens to guard their base. This valley is the Terrene Shrine's headquarters? Fang Xingjian thought, isn't this too easy? If that's the case, why hasn't the royal family made a move yet? Could it be that they're really worried about the monsters from other worlds that the Terrene Shrine is unable to control, so they're going to perish together? Just as Fang Xingjian was thinking of this, a person flew toward them. It was a bald, strong man who was also covered in tattoos. He bore a great resemblance to the bald, tattooed man whom Fang Xingjian had knocked out. He directly descended from the sky on a griffin, and a strong pressure covered the sky and the earth, stimulating the entire slave team to cry out in alarm. Batches of horses carrying goods were also startled and cried out in alarm. "Richard, how dare you injure my younger brother?" The bald tattooed man laughed as he walked out from the group of carriages. "Richard, did you think I would let you off just like that? When I entered the valley, I used black magic to inform my brother, Savis. I don't know when you secretly accumulated the strength to actually have the strength to defeat Rainbow Arrow, but you actually dared to attack me. You really don't know life from death. My brother has already mastered level 9 black magic." A hint of impatience flashed in Fang Xingjian's eyes as he said directly, "You talk too much nonsense. In short, you want to cause trouble for me, right? You." The bald tattooed man's elder brother, Savis, stopped his younger brother. He looked at Fang Xingjian and sneered. "Very good, Richard. To think that after going out to temper yourself, you're no longer a piece of trash. You've even trained yourself to have the guts to talk back to me. But you still haven't understood the principles of this world. Only the strong can be arrogant toward the weak, and right now, I'm clearly the strongest among everyone here." Fang Xingjian could not be bothered to listen to his nonsense. To him, there was no difference between the two baldies' abilities. He sent out a palm strike across space, sending the bald tattooed man flying out and crashing into layers of mountain walls. His internal organs were ruptured, and his muscles were crushed. He lost consciousness completely. "It's clear that you're not the strongest here." Fang Xingjian shook his head and then looked at the bald tattooed man. The bald man cried out in astonishment, "You can't. Get down." With a boom, Fang Xingjian sent out an explosive palm strike across space. Violent air currents descended from the skies, slamming the bald man into the ground like he was slamming a nail. The bald man was badly mutilated and looked like he was on the brink of death. The gray-robed mages were all bloodthirsty and cruel people who had taken countless lives. Therefore, Fang Xingjian felt no qualms about treating them like this. Seeing how arrogant and domineering Fang Xingjian was, everyone in the group fell silent. It was as if no one had expected that the Richard who had been so submissive to the other mages would undergo such a great change. Fang Xingjian said calmly, "What are you waiting for? Let's go." Therefore, the entire group continued to advance in silence. However, when the group was halfway into the valley, the entire valley started to tremble violently, as if there was an earthquake. Fang Xingjian's eyes flashed, and a hint of astonishment flashed in his eyes. The many mountains that formed the valley actually stood up on their own. They were like many huge fingers that lifted up, and the ground beneath the carriages shot up into the sky. This feeling was as if the entire valley was a huge palm, and the carriages were in the center of the palm. Cries of shock and agony rang out incessantly, and a few carriages fell toward the ground. Fang Xingjian's long sword swept out, and electromagnetic light flashed. The mountain rocks turned into many stone pillars and railings, blocking everyone's fall. "What's going on?" Sally looked at Fang Xingjian in astonishment and said, "Are you going to kill us here?" "Idiot." Fang Xingjian looked toward the gloomy sky and said, "Someone's coming." The entire valley flashed with traces of gray light, and a heavy might descended from the sky, causing everyone to feel a sense of fear and nervousness. It was as if a natural enemy was about to descend and eat them. Sally and the others became nervous. With such a terrifying aura, it was clear that some top-notch expert was about to appear. Fang Xingjian appeared indifferent. The gray-robed mages were experts in modifying the physical body, and they had a thorough understanding of the various intricate structures of the human body. Fang Xingjian had wanted to disguise himself and enter the gray-robed mage's lair, but he had long since been prepared to be discovered. Moreover, everything depended on one's abilities. With his abilities, even if he were to forcefully barge into the Serene shrine, he had the confidence to escape unscathed. At the next moment, Fang Xingjian abruptly lifted his head and looked toward the sky, and streams of sword light burst out from his eyes. In the sky, a hint of gray clouds had unknowingly appeared. The gray clouds formed a huge human face, which laughed maniacally and said, "Fang Xingjian, you've come all the way to the plains to look for us. How can we possibly not receive you well?" Fang Xingjian returned to his original appearance and said, "You're from the Serene Shrine? Which of the 10 great elders are you? Or is it the mysterious genius Ghost King?" After interacting with Tyrant, Fang Xingjian already knew that the strongest expert in the Serene Shrine was the leader, the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord. Below him were the 10 great elders, the genius Ghost King, and the third prince. Hearing Fang Xingjian's words, the dark clouds in the sky laughed out loud, and many voices rang out in the surroundings. There were all sorts of wild shouts, agonizing cries, and furious bellows. However, what was even more astonishing was that a total of 9 gray light pillars soared into the sky, turning into waves of brutal, bloody, and primitive auras that encompassed Fang Xingjian. Chapter 551. Fang Xingjian's sword intense soared into the sky as well, clashing against the 9 light pillars and the 10 streams of oil emitted by the dark cloud. In that instant, countless verbal exchanges were completed. "Fang Xingjian, do you think it will send ourselves to your doorstep one by one for you to take care of? Now that we know how amazing you are, how can we possibly give you the chance to grow? We noticed you the moment you entered the valley. This time around, all 10 of us elders are here. Prepare to die." Fang Xingjian said calmly. "You guys knew long ago that I was coming. Your subordinates are too useless. They made such a big fuss just to look for origin essence stones. If we still didn't know that you were coming, wouldn't we all be dead? Moreover, we won't give you the chance to take us down one by one. A genius like you is already a great threat to our Serene Shrine. Today, we're going to suppress you completely." "Ha ha! Fang Xingjian, your physical body is so powerful. If we modify him into a slave warrior, your name will definitely continue to spread throughout the world." The clash of wills was completed in an instant, and there seemed to be a sound of rolling thunder ringing out in void space. It was clear that the Serene Shrine's intelligence network was not weak at all. This made sense. Black magic that could carry out various physical modifications would naturally have all sorts of extraordinary intelligence channels. When they found out that Fang Xingjian was collecting origin essence stones, they had taken precautions. Moreover, when Fang Xingjian had first entered the valley, they had not alerted Fang Xingjian at all. They had not even informed anyone who had come looking for trouble with Fang Xingjian. It was only until now that they had suddenly taken action that they had clearly thought that they were fully prepared. Fang Xingjian was clearly unwilling to wait for the 10 elders to complete their ambush. With a dash, he dashed toward the dark cloud in the sky. With this dash, many tentacles formed from gray energy darted out from void space, coiling toward Fang Xingjian. However, these were not the physical bodies of living creatures. They were purely energy tentacles activated by black magic. Fang Xingjian, who was immune to black magic, could not care about them at all. His body charged forward, shaking all the energy tentacles into dust. Fang Xingjian then punched out. Light rays distorted and space trembled, turning into an endless force that struck toward the dark cloud in the sky. The dark cloud face let out an astonished cry, as if it had not expected Fang Xingjian to be so ferocious. It quickly opened its mouth and let out a furious bellow. Streams of plasma came smashing down like a waterfall, turning into a blue shock wave that wanted to engulf Fang Xingjian. However, Fang Xingjian neither dodged nor gave way. He continued to smash out with his fist, and a violent power caused the plasma shock waves to flow in reverse. With a rumble, Fang Xingjian collided with the dark clouds, shattering the big face and scattering the dark clouds. When the dark clouds were dispersed, a myriad of agonizing cries rang out. It turned out that the dark clouds were not really dark clouds, but a sea of bugs formed from countless bugs that were the size of fingernails. Fang Xingjian focused his attention and saw that each of the bugs had a human head, releasing all sorts of howls, cries, and agonizing cries. They were clearly bugs that had been refined using some kind of evil arts. Now that the sea of insects had been scattered with a single strike, the resentment they emitted surged forth. However, it was once again shattered by Fang Xingjian's sword intent. The sea of bugs and the overwhelming resentment were dispersed by Fang Xingjian with a single attack, immediately revealing an emaciated old man with white hair. He was the Serene Shrine's great elder, the strongest amongst the 10 great elders, the Bug King. Seeing how ferocious Fang Xingjian was, the Bug King clearly felt his scalp go numb. A series of high-speed incantations rang out in the void, and at the next moment, his body disintegrated into millions of flying insects. Each flying insect grew rapidly, and like flying dragons, they attacked Fang Xingjian. Each of these flying insects, which were the size of cow's head, had iron wings and claws that could tear steel plates apart. The venom in their bodies could poison a level 25 conferred knight to death. They were extremely vicious. However, faced with this sea of flying dragons, Fang Xingjian merely punched out again. The air distorted into a sphere, and a terrifying power exploded the physical particles. The high temperature instantly swept through the bugs, burning them into ashes. Violent sword intense soared into the air, crushing the consciousness of the several tens of flying insects that were trying to escape. The sword intense also contained extremely violent and murderous thoughts. Where's the world annihilation heavenly lord? Where is he? He's not coming out. Do you think that a bunch of clowns like you who only know how to play tricks will be able to ambush me? In that instant, violent sword intense wreaked havoc in all directions. Fang Xingjian just stood there in void space, as if he was not worried about the Serene Shrine's ambush at all. Looking at Fang Xingjian, who was in the sky, the people in the group were all astonished, including Sally. They were all astonished to see Fang Xingjian defeat the Bug King with a single sword attack. Sally thought, to think that it's Fang Xingjian? What powerful abilities. This power is even more amazing than what the rumors say. Although he was very powerful the last time we met, his battle prowess was only about the same as General Allen's. To think that he's so powerful now. How on earth did he do it? I thought that the rumors about him were all exaggerated. To think that the rumors made him look weak. The two young men were also in a daze. They had not expected that a mage sent by the Serene Shrine to capture slaves would be the world-famous Fang Xingjian, the top expert of the younger generation. He had even defeated the Serene Shrine's Grand Elder, the Bug King, with just 2 or 3 attacks. This was like an earthworm turning around and transforming into a divine dragon. The contrast was too astonishing. However, the battle clearly did not end so quickly. The Bug King's voice rang out in the sky once again, drifting in all directions as if it existed everywhere. Fang Xingjian, of course we know your abilities. How can we not think highly of you? This time around, it's not just us 10 elders who have taken action. As they spoke, the earth trembled, and the entire valley changed once again. The rock strata at the bottom of the valley rose up, turning into a huge stone giant amidst everyone's astonished cries. The stone giant had a height of over 500 meters and could be said to be so tall that it reached the clouds. The group of slaves from earlier was on its huge palm, and just its palm alone had the area of a small town. Fang Xingjian's eyes narrowed. You're the last genius that the Serene Shrine has been nurturing over the past few years. The extremely mysterious Ghost King who has never appeared before. To think that your entire body has turned into a base? It's no wonder that no one knows about you. They don't even know what you look like. It turned out that the Serene Shrine's headquarters was in the Ghost King's body. Most of the time, it was hidden underground with a small portion exposed on the surface. It turned into various mountains, valleys, and mounds that moved about unpredictably, making it impossible for anyone to find out where the Serene Shrine's headquarters was. Loud buzzing sounds rang out from the stone giant's body. That's right, Fang Xingjian. My body has merged with the flesh and blood of 3,600 types of gods and demons from beyond the heavens. In the entire world, as long as they haven't attained a breakthrough to the divine level, no human will be able to surpass me in terms of physical body. With that, he opened up one of his hands and smashed out toward Fang Xingjian like an island. It was as if the entire sky had collapsed, and a stretch of darkness came encompassing down. Chapter 552. A casual attack from the Ghost King was able to cause the world to change. It truly had the power to move mountains and overturn seas. Fang Xingjian could imagine that if the Ghost King were to appear on Earth alone, he would be able to turn the entire demonic city into ruins within over 10 minutes. He was a pure violent machine. Attack. Simultaneously, the Worm Kings will let out an explosive bellow, ringing out in the minds of the other 9 elders. In that instant, 10 black space-time passageways open up around Fang Xingjian. An extremely vast aura from the primordial era shot out from the pitch-black passageways. That ancient and distant aura seemed to be even more ancient and experienced than the entire Earth and miracle world. At the next moment, 10 extremely shriveled up huge claws that looked like those of the legendary evil spirits, evil gods, and demons stretched out. These claws were emitting black chi and bony, as if they had been soaked in sulfuric or hydrochloric acid. However, the moment they stretched out, it was as if space had frozen. Fang Xingjian felt as if the air had turned into something material, not budging in the slightest, even when he unleashed his power. Level 11 Gray robed black magic, Claw of the Abyss deity, summoning the legendary death god from the netherworld to attack. It could freeze space and confine the target. The world's metamorphosis had not only increased the density of ether particles, but it had also increased the amount of diabolic energy. This allowed the level of the black magic performed by these mages to get increasingly higher. Right now, the level 11 Gray robed black magic, Claw of the Abyss deity, was jointly performed by the 10 elders, and its prowess had increased by more than 10 times. Fang Xingjian, we've dealt with you so many times. Do you think we still don't know what you're relying on? Black magic that purely uses diabolic energy is ineffective against you, but you're not immune to the attacks of summoned creatures. The Worm King laughed coldly in his heart. Die. However, the fact that Fang Xingjian was immune to black magic was only spread among the mages' upper echelon, and the people below them did not know about it. Otherwise, wouldn't it destroy the faith of all the mages and cause them to doubt the will of the evil god? In fact, the reason why Fang Xingjian was so determined to kill him was probably due to his immunity to black magic. It was like how the mages revered, worshipped, and borrowed the powers of the evil god. However, if the will of an evil god had really descended and chosen a person who was immune to black magic, the mages would probably not worship him so much. No one wanted a god to descend from the heavens and rule over them, let alone a wizard who had always been high and mighty. Just as the 10 grand elders had predicted, the claw of the infernal deity was no longer immune to it. In the blink of an eye, 10 ghostly claws latched onto Fong Xingjian's body, making him feel as if he couldn't break free. There was even a mysterious aura in his mind that threatened to freeze his consciousness and send him into eternal slumber. This was not the end yet. This was not the Serene Shrine's all-out attack. In the opposite direction of the Ghost King, an afterimage cut across the sky, charging toward Fong Xingjian at an astonishing speed. It was a man covered in golden feathers, with 2 lightning-like wings flapping rapidly on his back. Every time the wings flapped violently, a bolt of golden lightning flashed, accelerating his body once again. Waves of majestic, sharp, and valiant aura kept on emitting from his body. He was just like the legendary divine-level ferocious beast, the Thunderbird. The person who had come was the Empire's 3rd prince, who was said to be extremely mysterious and reclusive. Even many people in the royal family did not know who he was. This royal prince, who had been secretly providing support to the Serene Shrine, had even undergone body modifications, transplanting the organs and bones of the divine-level ferocious beast, the Thunderbird, into his own body, becoming a god who was half human and half god. From the moment he appeared to the moment he made his move, he did not say a single word. He did not unleash any martial will at all, nor was he willing to reveal his identity in the slightest. He displayed an endless sense of mystery. As he charged forth, he brought along a terrifying lightning tempest, covering a distance of several tens of kilometers in the blink of an eye. The electric currents on his body seemed to have turned into something material, emitting a scorching smell as he passed through the air. He was like the legendary lightning hammer in the hands of the god of thunder and goddess of lightning. He also seemed to bring along a myriad of lightning bolts, turning into a thunderstorm and smashing toward Fong Xingjian at an astonishing speed. It was as if he wanted to strike all the thunderbolts in the world toward Fong Xingjian. The Serene Shrine's attack could be said to be world-shaking. First, the 10 great elders joined forces to perform the level 11 black magic, the Claw of the Abyss Lord, to restrain Fong Xingjian. Then, from the left and right, the Ghost King unleashed a violent attack that weighed several million tons. The 3rd prince used his half-human and half-god powers to condense the destructive lightning tempest into a single point of attack. There was probably no one below the divine level who would be able to fend off this joint attack. At this moment, even Fong Xingjian seemed to be in an extremely dangerous situation. Regardless of whether it was the 10 great elders, the Ghost King, the 3rd prince, or the people from the slave carriages, including Sally and the others, all of them felt that Fong Xingjian would definitely die. The Worm King even broke into an excited smile. If he could kill Fong Xingjian and obtain his physical body, it would be a tremendous boost to the Serene Shrine's power. Moreover, the profoundness of Fong Xingjian's immunity to diabolic energy was something that even the gray-robed mage's leader, the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord, would be tempted. At this critical moment, Fong Xingjian finally unleashed his power, which could allow him to dominate an area and exchange blows with a divine-level expert, allowing him to be ranked among the top-notch experts in the world. A rumble seemed to ring out in void space, and the auras of a total of 10,710 specialty seeds burst out from Fong Xingjian's body. Simultaneously, an endless glow swelled up on the surface of Fong Xingjian's body, and his hair stood up, exuding a white glow that could cause one to go blind. The intense energy turned into waves of high temperature, unleashing out as if the sun had exploded. In the end, it reached its peak amidst a sword intent that soared into the sky. Scram! Puff! Sounds rang out, and a power that could distort space and break light rays was unleashed by Fang Xingjian in the most domineering and unreasonable manner. Amidst the series of distortions in space, Fang Xingjian forcibly shattered the claw of the Abyss God, breaking free from the restraints of this level 11 gray, robed black magic. After shaking off the restraints on his body, Fang Xingjian struck out a backhand palm toward the Ghost King's huge palm, which was like a small mountain. In that 1/10,000th of a second, the power of terra ingurgitation was contained within it. After cultivating for such a long period of time, Fang Xingjian's prodigious astral divine powers waves had long since reached level 10, and the gravitational force absorbed by his terra ingurgitation encompassed a range of 10 kilometers. How terrifying was this power? Even 100 Ghost Kings would not have such a weight. Lie down! A thunderous explosion rang out in Fang Xingjian's consciousness, and the Ghost King only felt that his body had become lighter before becoming heavier. Violent power gushed forth, and the air seemed to have turned into a material palm, colliding with his palm. Chapter 553. As Fang Xingjian slapped out with his palm, the Ghost King felt as if his huge body, which was over 500 meters tall, had turned into a baby before this gush of power. The palm he had extended earlier shattered inch by inch, turning into a rain of rocks that smashed onto the ground like many meteors exploding. At the same time, his body was pushed out by this irresistible force that could even bend space and light rays. It was as if he was a baby who had been slapped to the ground by an adult. Amidst a deafening sound, the Ghost King's body smashed onto the ground. With his huge body, the destructive prowess from crashing onto the ground was devastating. It was as if one could hear his deafening explosive sound even within a range of several hundred kilometers. What was even more terrifying was that under the push of terra ingurgitation's force, the Ghost King was still sent flying backward after crashing down. He had to be pushed back for over 10 kilometers, leaving behind a long crack on the ground and shattering more than half of the rock layers on his body before he could stop. With just this attack, over half of the Ghost King's cultivation had been crippled, and he had completely lost his battle prowess. However, after Fang Xingjian slapped out with his palm, he did not look at the outcome. Instead, he swept out with his sword again, performing the light pursuit sword ripples with his current powers. His speed and prowess went through another qualitative change. Over 10 million sword ripples slashed out mercilessly toward the third prince's thundercloud tempest. The violent sword force instantly tore apart the thunderbolts and even sent the third prince, who had a half-human and half-god body, flying over 100 kilometers away. With a boom, he smashed through a mountain and sank several tens of kilometers into the ground. His flesh and blood were smashed, and his bones were almost crushed. He was on the brink of death. Immediately after, Fang Xingjian's sword fingers swept out again, and a sword chi that was several thousand meters long tore through the sky, slashing out toward the Ghost King who had fallen to the ground. At a miraculous speed, the entire world seemed to have come to a standstill. Not only did it slash down that small island-like palm, but Fang Xingjian's body also flashed past, landing below the huge palm in the still world. Fang Xingjian pushed out his right hand toward the sky. With an explosive rumble, violent powers were unleashed as Fang Xingjian's right hand came into contact with the mountain. His ingenious circulation allowed his powers to be distributed out evenly. Waves of powers acted on the entire mountain like water currents, forcefully catching the huge palm-like mountain above the Ghost King's head. The Ghost King continued to tumble out, turning into crushed rocks. What's going on? Didn't we fall down? Where's Fang Xingjian? Fang Xingjian. As a conferred knight, Sally's heaven's perception could directly receive the light and sound waves in the air. She and the two young men who had darted over to her amidst the chaos could clearly see that Fang Xingjian was at the bottom of the mountain under their feet, lifting up the entire mountain with one hand. When Fang Xingjian had started the battle earlier, he had retracted the sword intents that were suppressing their bodies so that they could fight at full power. This also allowed them to clearly understand the entire battle situation. At this moment, Rainbow Arrow had also recovered his battle prowess, and he came to Sally's side with a look of astonishment on his face as he said, Mountain Shifter, this power, this aura. Fong Xingjian King, Xingjian, how strong of a physical body is. Even among Tier 1 divine level experts, not everyone will be able to win against him for sure, let alone those from the younger generation. Right now, Fong Xingjian was holding up the mountain with one hand and standing in void space. With a long bellow, he broke through the layers of clouds, and his majestic voice rang out. It was as if a myriad of thunderbolts had exploded in the sky. Where's the world annihilation, Heavenly Lord? The reason why I'm here is just to borrow your origin essence stones. I don't need too many, just 1 gram. Give me 1 gram of origin essence stone, and I'll leave immediately. The area within a range of 100 lis fell silent. The Ghost King slowly condensed the mountain to recover, while the third prince held his breath and focused, working hard to recover his physical body. There were no traces of the 10 elders, as if they had all escaped. Fong Xingjian frowned and said, If I can't get my hands on the origin essence stones, then I can only wipe out the Serene Shrine and remove your name from history. Now that things had come to this, since he had been discovered in advance, Fong Xingjian did not plan on hiding anything. He might as well use force to force them. In any case, the Serene Shrine was notorious. Fong Xingjian did not feel any guilt in using force to force a faction like this. The Worm King's weak voice rang out from all directions. Fong Xingjian could sense that the voice was being transmitted by many bugs that were so tiny that they were hard to discern with the naked eye. He had no idea where the Serene Shrine's real body was. Fong Xingjian, you won't be able to get even a bit of powder from the Origin Essence Stone, let alone a gram. Don't be arrogant. This is our Serene Shrine's headquarters. Do you really think that you can gain the upper hand? Fong Xingjian let out a cold laugh and punched out. Violent sword force pushed the air, turning into a stream of sword chi that was several tens of lis long and moving out in all directions. It crushed all the sound-transmitting bugs that were hidden in the air. Even your leader, the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord, hasn't come. What can the few of you do to me? Although Fong Xingjian's words were extremely arrogant, each and every one of his nerves was extremely tense. He was constantly on guard against the Serene Shrine's counterattack. Almost at the same time as Fong Xingjian said this, a sigh rang out from the sky. Who said that I'm not here? At the instant the first word was spoken, a gray glow encompassed Fong Xingjian's body. It contained an aura that seemed to be able to engulf the world, nurture the world, engulf all living things, and nurture all living things gushed forth. Benevolence and brutality, bloodthirst and purity, kindness and evil. Waves of contradictory auras intertwined together, causing Fong Xingjian to feel an extremely majestic and great feeling. It was as if this was the reality of the world. Vaguely, Fong Xingjian seemed to be able to see a huge wild beast in void space. It was as if the entire world was on its back. This was the image of the divine world annihilation beast that the gray-robed mages had visualized. It was a legendary divine being that could carry the entire world on its back. The aura from the gray light came gushing forth, almost freezing Fong Xingjian's entire consciousness and completely suppressing Fong Xingjian's powers. The World Annihilation Heavenly Lord? His willpower is 10 or even 100 times stronger than Li Shuanghua's. Is this the power of the gray-robed mages at their strongest? He has completely turned the immense diabolic energy into his own willpower. Especially after the world's metamorphosis, diabolic energy has increased tremendously. His accumulations have been terrifying to begin with. And with the accumulation of several thousand or even several tens of thousands of years of experience in the Serene Shrine, his abilities have also increased tremendously along with the world's metamorphosis. To think that he can now suppress my physical strength slightly? However, at the next moment, a sharp sword intent that could slash through everything also rose from Fong Xingjian's body. It was the Heaven's Volition sword intent. A tearing sound rang out, and Fang Xingjian broke free from the restraints. However, just as he broke free from the restraints, a huge black snake that was as majestic as a mountain range and as dense as a tsunami slithered out from void space, wrapping around Fang Xingjian and the entire mountain in his hands. Chapter 554. Level 8 Black Magic, Torch Dragon's Offspring. This was a monster that had been summoned from another world, a descendant of the Torch Dragon. The huge black snake, which could encompass an entire small hill and which had a strong vital energy and blood that was like a tsunami, was the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord's battle partner for many years. After many years of nurturing and training, he had nurtured this huge beast by the name of Jiuming to become extremely powerful. Although black magic itself was only at level 8, this huge snake was now almost comparable to the huge beast summoned by level 12 black magic. This snake? What kind of monster is this? Looking at the huge snake that could cover up the sky and which exuded an unparalleled sense of power with each of its movements, as if it could casually destroy mountains and tear apart the earth, everyone on the small mountain was stunned. Fang Xingjian also frowned coldly. The quality of this huge snake's physical body was not as good as his. However, with such a huge size, it was sufficient for it to fight against him. After all, it was different from the Ghost King. The Ghost King's body was made up of too many rocks, and with each additional rock, the Ghost King would need to use even more power to activate it. It relied on its weight to fight. However, each piece of the huge snake's body was made up of flesh and tendons, and each additional piece of flesh was a source of power. Therefore, the larger its size, the greater its power. At the next moment, countless eyes opened abruptly on the huge snake's body. Each of them was like a pitch-black pearl, and ordinary people would go crazy just by looking at them. They would then sink into endless crazy dreams for the rest of their lives. Waves of thick black aura extended out, and a series of rapid incantations rang out in void space, causing the black aura to become increasingly thick and dangerous. Clearly, this huge snake and the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord were joining forces to perform some world-shaking black magic. The Heaven's Volition Sword intent on Fang Xingjian's body also started to condense, and he was about to perform the 5th God-slaying sword. He was not planning on waiting for the other party to slowly release black magic. It's a pity that I've used Terra Ingurgitation on the Ghost King. Right now, there's less than 10 seconds of the Heaven's Volition Sword intent left. If I have to deal with this huge snake and the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord, I'll be a little nervous. Should I leave? Fang Xingjian had not expected that the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord was even more terrifying and amazing than what Tyrant had said. Simultaneously, the 10 Great Elders' gray light pillars lit up once again. They clearly wanted to assist the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord in wiping out Fang Xingjian completely. The moment the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord made his move, he immediately gained the upper hand and completely suppressed Fang Xingjian's aura. Just as an earth-shattering battle was about to break out, a white light rose from the south and quickly occupied most of the sky. It even dispersed the black gas on the giant snake's body. A light path that was tens of thousands of miles long and several kilometers wide directly crossed over from the south to the sky above the giant snake. An old man and a young man walked on the light path and instantly arrived at the scene. The old man had a face full of white hair and a white beard. When he saw the giant snake, he laughed out loud. His entire body released tens of thousands of white lights. The giant snake seemed to have been splashed with acid. It roared angrily, and the black gas around its body soared into the sky. It collided with the white light and created endless explosions that filled the sky. When a bit of the black gas landed on the ground, a large area of the ground would be vaporized completely. The white-haired old man's marshal swept out toward Fang Xingjian and the giant snake. He laughed and said, "Old gray devil, let's forget about today's battle. The current situation in the world is very strange. The first prince is probably planning to refine an unprecedented Hell's map. He wants to subdue all the factions in the world, and your Terrene shrine will be the first to bear the brunt. You don't wish to fight against us at this time and lose your powers for nothing, right? After a period of silence, a voice that was filled with viciousness and danger, like fingernails scratching against a blackboard, rang out through the communication of wills. "Philip, you want to help this Fong Xinjiang?" This white-haired, white-bearded old man was Prince Philip, the uncle of the current emperor, who was stationed at the northern borders all year round. He was also one of the Empire's 10 great divine-level experts. Hearing that, Philip said, "Fong Xinjiang is our Empire's conferred knight. Of course, I'll have to protect him. Secondly, the world is about to undergo a great change, and every bit of human power is extremely precious. Moreover, George, the first prince, is getting more and more powerful. It's very likely that he has already attained a breakthrough to Tier 2 of the divine level and is advancing toward Tier 3 of the divine level. He and Fong Xinjiang are mortal enemies, and he has also snatched away countless information and members from your Terrene Shrine. He's also the Terrene Shrine's mortal enemy, right? If you guys continue to have internal strife, you'll probably be suppressed by George until you feel unbearable pain in the future, never to see the light of day again." After saying that, Philip smiled and then released an astonishing piece of news. "Moreover, I've received news that the current leader of the ancient path of hell, the Abyss Lord, has already contacted the Mage Association. It won't be long before the royal family joins forces with the association, planning to summon an evil god's clone and kill it to snatch away the evil god's powers. Once they succeed, the entire empire will probably be filled with the royal family's lands. There will no longer be a place for us to stay." Although Philip was a prince, he was a prince who guarded the borders and controlled a region. Therefore, he would naturally be greatly suspected and guarded against by the emperor, and his days would not be easy. Hearing Philip's words, both Fong Xinjiang and the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord were astonished. Summoning an evil god's clone and then killing it to snatch away the evil god's powers? How domineering, how shocking was this method? Such a great feat could only be achieved by the Empire's royal family and the Mage Association joining forces. With a cold snort, the World Annihilation Heavenly Lord's voice rang out. "I've also heard of this news, but I didn't expect it to be true. Since that's the case, I'll let you off today, Fong Xinjiang." The huge snake Jiao Ming retreated slowly. Simultaneously, the heavily injured third prince had also disappeared. The shattered rock body of the Ghost King under his feet seemed to have really turned into rock, and the spirituality within it had also completely disappeared. Prince Philip laughed and said, "Xinjiang, I'll bring them away. You can put down the mountain." With a flick of his long sleeves, a stream of white light turned into many big hands, bringing everyone from the slave team down. With a casual push, Fong Xinjiang threw the small mountain on top of his head on the ground, causing an earthquake and a cloud of dust. Rainbow Arrow Allen was the first to appear before Prince Philip. He knelt down and said with a guilty expression, "Your subject has failed his mission and failed to protect the young Mississippi, grandfather." Sally and the two young men also walked over with their heads lowered, as if they did not dare to meet Philip's gaze. Philip let out a cold snort. "I'll teach you guys a lesson when we get back." To think that Sally was Prince Philip's granddaughter. It was no wonder that she was so powerful at such a young age and had even become an arbitrator. Fong Xinjiang had thought that she had been pushed out to be cannon fodder. However, by the looks of it now, it was because of Prince Philip's status that Sally had wanted to do it herself? Or could it be that someone had instigated her from behind? However, Fong Xinjiang could not be bothered with the many secrets and just looked at Prince Philip. Philip also looked at Fong Xinjiang and said, "Brother Xinjiang, do you have the time to come over for a chat?" The young man, who had been standing next to Prince Philip and had been encompassed in a layer of blurry white light, also revealed his appearance and said, "Xinjiang, it's really true that hearing about you is not as good as meeting you in person. I'm really envious that second brother has an expert like you under him. It's rare to meet someone like you. Let's have a good chat today. Fourth prince. Sally stood at the side, covering her mouth and gasping as she looked at the fourth prince who had revealed his appearance. Fang Xinjian's brows twitched. So this was the fourth prince who had been rumored to be under the holy sea of truth. Now that he thought about it, it seemed that even Prince Philip's actions had a hint of the holy sea of truth. It was no wonder that the two of them were so close. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.